Okay, it's 5:30. I'm gonna, at this time, call the March 21st, 2023 Walhalla City Council meeting to order. I'd like to welcome all of you for coming. At this time, we'll have a short moment of silence. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask Councilman Underwood, who would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item would be to approve our agenda. Hear a motion that we approve our agenda as sent out.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I say.
All in favor?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. I would like to, considering that the heaviness of the agenda tonight, and we just received some information here, I would like to remove the first reading of ordinance 2023-6 and 2023-7 to be included in next meeting.
Okay. Councilman Keene's motion is to remove these two items from the agenda. Which two was it?
It's the chicken
It's
one.
Number 5 and 6 on the agenda,
Yes.
second page.
6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Just delaying them a month.
And just for clarity, this is the first reading?
It is.
that
It
right?
is.
So what, can you define what first reading will give us?
Well, first reading is basically in title only. It's still got to be passed another time. Administrator Burton, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I'd be glad to. First reading is required for all ordinances, and that's when council reads the ordinances, ask any questions, you'll have the first reading. After that, if it passes, the second reading will go to council again. There'll be more discussion, time to amend, and then you'll have a public review of that. This is the first step in the second step. First of one of two steps to pass an ordinance.
I'll have significant amendments, I believe. I want to talk to the county extension agents, and I haven't had a chance to do that.
I understand, and you still would have time to do that.
To do it,
Um,
it's nice if we come in though and
All right.
have that. It's well, that's
Does
what it's.
somebody want to second his motion to amend the agenda? The motion dies. So we had a motion to approve the agenda. Did we have a second?
We did.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item is public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes and must be directed to council.
Mr. Mayor, minutes.
I'm sorry. forgive me, the next item was approval of minutes from our last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve them. I did read them and they look correct.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
And
Any discussion?
I have a correction.
Okay,
Okay, what page?
It's, bottom of page 3, last paragraph.
That's 3.
Page 3? You said that?
Yeah, it's not labeled. Starts, the last paragraph starts, Administrator Burton discussed the appointment of Board of Zoning Appeals seat. Mr. Kenny Johns has applied for this position. Councilman Underwood made the motion to accept. Councilman Melendez second. Mayor Edwards called for a vote. All present council members voted yea, none nay. Motion carries for a new sanitation truck.
I saw that, yeah.
So
That-
correcting,
Yeah, we can
I
just,
forgot that. Just,
motion carries, period.
and remove the
For a new
sanitation
sanitation
truck
truck.
was from the
Previous paragraph.
previous paragraph.
Mhm.
You're exactly right, I forgot.
Page 6.
So we'll amend those and change that. Anything else anybody saw that we need to change? All right. All those in favor of the amended minutes, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there is any. Okay. Now we're gonna go to public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes and must be directed to council per city ordinance 2022-8. Who would like to speak first? Mr. Luther Gilliard. Luther Lyle, I'm sorry. I'm blah, blah, blah today.
My brother David and I would like to, present this to the city council. It's a plat of Walhalla from 1890. It was drawn by one of our family members from way back when, William Grant. And it has a lot of interesting things on here. David had an old copy, and, it was hard to read, and there were some problems with it, but, Charles Sally back here did some magic to it with Photoshop and all that, and cleaned it up. And Francoise made some corrections to it, cause she had an ancestor on here also, and the name was misspelled, so we corrected this. But anyway, we'd like to, donate this to the city.
You want
Thank you.
pass it around and let the guys look at it, and then I think it would be great if we could pass it around the audience.
Yeah.
Let everyone see it.
I've actually got a picture of that on my.
And just for the record,
Yeah,
Mr.
there's
Luther,
an old one out
That's
there.
what I've got, I
Copy,
think.
but
An old-
It was hard to read.
Yeah, it was hard to read.
Yeah.
can we have, just for the record, can you address your name and address on the front so that way we can have that?
I am Luther Lau of Walhalla, and this is my brother David Lau, also of Walhalla.
Okay.
You can't, half of it you can't read on the.
Thank you. Lifelong residents.
Thank y'all.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
Very
amazing.
Thank you.
To anyone that may not know, is Luther is the founding figure behind the Cherokee Museum.
Oh, and the Cherokee Museum is donating this,
Collaboration.
That is really a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charles did a great job on that. He has some skills, technical skills.
Well, thank you all. That's
Thanks
very,
to
very.
everyone involved.
Yeah.
Put that up.
That's neat. So from your historian perspective, do you feel like you said 18, what year was it?
1890.
1890, fast forward 2023, similarities? You think we're honoring what has been established in some way?
Some things are the same. A lot has changed, like we don't have the Blue Ridge Railroad coming into Walhalla.
I see it here,
We
yeah.
used to. We can remember when it still came in. Train would come in and have to back out because the tracks ended here.
That, where the depot's at, my grandmother lived in a house that's,
Okay, the depot was down.
yeah, I used to,
Where the Earl House.
I used to sneak out at night and go down there to watch the train come in.
Yeah, and you could hear it, I remember hearing it at night, you know, the whistle would blow and it came. And more people, you know, it's on its way. And there were two depots, there was a freight depot, which is what we have here, and then a passenger.
The passenger depot was across the street and down a little ways away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's separate.
That's, I remember Robert Dilworth on that weird place.
There's
And
some
one other
names there.
interesting note, it
Yeah.
does have the Brandt House on there, it's one of the few houses that is listed, and we own that property.
We see names there that are still,
Pardon?
we see names there, streets names that are still here being used, Bullwinkle, College Street, and all that.
Yeah, and some of the names have changed, like there was
Yeah.
a Branch Street, but it's been changed to Boundary
Mhm.
Street, and then a few other, changes. And more
Yeah.
streets have been added that are not, I think some blocks were divided.
Hmm. That's neat.
Mention the high school.
Oh. Oh, yeah, yeah. David and I were looking at it before we came in. There's a male high school and a female college.
Male high school, female college.
So I don't know if it was that the females were so smart they needed to.
It's nice to have that care.
I guess they thought it was useless for us men to go to college.
We had to work on the farm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. In the sake of trying to speed up the process a little bit, is there anyone else that would like to speak to council tonight? Hearing none, we'll close public comment and move to administrator comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things to go over. I'll try to keep them quick. Laid on at your desks there, the new business guide. Something we've worked on for quite some time, and thank goodness for Celia and her assembling skills. She was able to put this thing together in more concise format, informative, that we can give out to any new prospective businesses. Has the actual checklist on it, some information, state, local, federal, things of that nature. So we'll be modifying that more as things grow. Things get a little bit more complicated, complex on the state level. We found out some things today that we need to add on as far as sanitation. So it will be a work in progress, but we've got it posted on the website. Katie's got it at Main Street, so we'll be pushing that out as well. And I appreciate all their work on that. Also, if you'll remember back, I believe either earlier this fiscal year or last, we earmarked $60,000 for an economic development grant. We have gotten that grant written, finalized, so we'll start pushing that out as well. Y'all have a chance to review that. We identified with the $60,000, we wanted to try to do 4 projects, and at least 2 of them commercial, 1 residential, and the 4th one either residential or commercial. So they'll apply for that, and that'll be run through the DDC that also runs the facade grants. I did talk to Duke Power. They should be doing the final hookup for the charging stations up there at Brown Square. They've got everything run underground there, and the transformer in. We've been meeting with Esquinas Last Ride and Main Street to the Mountains folks, planning those 2 events. ILR will be in April, and Main Street to the Mountains will be in May. Scott and myself and some of the other department heads too, we're looking at a new financial system called Springbrook. It's all online. It'll take the place of QS1. It'll streamline more things. People will be able to pay online for more things. And as far as we know, if you use your credit card in the lobby or debit card, there won't be a fee for that. So we're looking at trying to remove that fee and go to a more streamlined service. And this gives us an option of posting financial reports, updates that the public can see, check registers, things of that nature. So it offers a little bit more transparency. I want to mention Saturday, notified the media, but that'll be our utility fund budget workshop. I sent the agenda out for that today. And just speaking just a little bit about the budget, we're still waiting on the final audit, but the audit more or less is complete for fiscal year 21. We increased our assets by a little over $1 million. We increased our net position by about 1.46 million. We did borrow $304,000 out of ARP for the general fund and $88,000 for the utility fund. In the past, that number's been upwards to $400,000. So we did pretty good in that respect, and we still met our debt ratio. This year, for fiscal year 24, we had $6.15 million in requests, $4.36 million in estimated revenues. So obviously there's some work that we have to do, and I think we're pretty close on that. The utilities budget is pretty much done. That'll be on Saturday. General fund, we're about $500,000 out of kilter, so be working on that to get that taken care of. And then we did receive $91,000 in request in the HTAX program. We do have a good bit of American Rescue Fund dollars that will transfer over. We will not be getting any more of those from the federal government. That was a two-payment thing, but we do have a project with the county that they're funding the water line improvement, so we'll be getting reimbursed for that. And I did forward out the news blast from Skip from RIA. They're still in holding process on the applications that everybody's sent in. Hopefully the state legislature adds more money to that program so everybody gets a better shot at getting funded. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
Next on our agenda is the first and final reading of resolutions. And the first one is resolution 2023-8, a resolution to adopt a permit for open spaces. Mr. Burton, can you give us the highlights of that? Everyone has seen it, but what we've got there.
Yes, sir. This simply just enacts a permit process for the leasing or the use, rather, of the green space at Arby's and the one up at Brown Square. We're starting to get a lot of requests for people to use those two spaces. We're not proposing any charge for that right now, but we do just need some sort of process. That way, if somebody wants to use it and they've reserved it and somebody's up there, it should eliminate any potential conflicts, and it just actually let City Hall know that, you know, somebody's going to be up there using it. They will be required to carry, if a group wants to use it, to carry the insurance. So if something does happen to someone that's participating in something on those green spaces, that they're covered, and the city will be additionally insured as well.
Is there any questions on this resolution? Everybody so good with that? We need to vote on that tonight, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
All right. Do I have a motion that we adopt resolution 2023-8?
I make the motion.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor of resolution 2023-8? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. That one's history. All right, the next one, resolution 2023-9. It's a resolution to adopt an emergency operations plan for the city of Walhalla. Administrator Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that's been a work in progress probably for the last 6, 7 years, at least 6 years. We've had one, but it's just been kind of loose, housed at the fire department. But in order to apply for grants and then just formalize that we have an EOP practice, proposing that we adopt this plan. Each department has some sort of duties if there's an emergency. Those are listed there. This would create the Emergency Operations Center, which would be at the fire department. The fire department has in the past, when I was there, handled emergency management operations, and they'll continue to do that as well. Also, with the EOP, we would work in conjunction with the state and county, going through the county and into the state.
I'll make a motion, we accept.
Second?
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this one? Looks, I think you guys did a good job on it. Detail. All right, all those in favor of resolution 2023-9, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Now, let's go to resolution 2023-10. And this is a resolution to adopt a exposure control plan. Mr. Burton.
Thank you again. This has been kind of our existing policy for several years now, but in the interest of grants and everything else, we just need to formally adopt something citywide. But this all pertains to should a fireman, a police officer, a public works employee, any city employee get exposed to some sort of bodily fluid, blood, etc. The process, the OSHA process for being treated, the decontamination, testing, etc., and reporting. So this just checks one of those boxes, and it should help us with our insurance premiums as well. So
I'll make a motion, we pass that too.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 2023-10, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Okay. We're going to the second page. All right, the next item is the second and final reading and public review of ordinances. And this is ordinance 2023-1, an ordinance to establish a registration for vacant and abandoned buildings. Mr. Burton, do you have anything to add? Everyone has copies of this.
I do just want to, ensure you that it's on page 7 of the ordinance 61 in the packet that we did out of last meeting strike all the fees for the residential under category 1.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for ordinance 2023-1 to establish a registration for vacant and abandoned buildings.
Have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We'll open it for discussion.
I formally submit my amendment that I hope everyone got. I wanted to make sure you had it well in advance of this because it was very involved. I don't know where yours is. Do you want to look at this
No,
one?
I got it, but.
Okay. It's
Can we make sure everybody's looking at the same ordinance? Cause I know we received some electronically. Like, this is the one that I received that I have in my package, but I see the one that you have. Which one are we looking at?
I have that one right there.
Well, the one that has been presented, motion and second,
Yeah, that's
is
the
the
same.
original.
Yeah,
And
2023.
Okay.
Councilman King has
Found it.
suggested some changes.
The amendment. And
Okay.
just to explain it, it's going back to what we had talked about at the first reading, is that I see a distinction between vacant and abandoned And I don't think that we have the authority, I don't think the US Constitution provides us with authority to tell somebody what they can do with their building. If they wanna leave it empty, they can leave it empty as long as it's not a nuisance, a detriment to the neighborhood and those around it. If it's well-maintained like any other building that people would occupy, what business do we have to be in their business? And so that, this reflects it. The amendment just reflects it. It talks about instead of abandoned buildings per se, abandoned properties, because sometimes that is the case. That's the case right here on Church Street, in my opinion. We have down here, it's not just a building, it's a shed and a tent, but it's just abandoned and it's just a detriment to to the neighbors. So I totally understand where the police need this and the fire need this, and I've tried to address that in the amendment. Everything that they would need, including the penalties and whatnot to rectify the situation, but at the same time, try to keep us from stepping on people's property rights. I don't know how we can ask them if it's a vacant building for an inspection or to step on the rights there, but if we lived in it, we don't expect anybody to come in our house. You know, so that's the crux to the matter on that. So I move that
Are you
we
making
would
that in
accept-
form of a motion?
motion,
to
I move
amend?
that we would, yes, I move that we would accept the amendment that you received, we have in front of you and you received online.
I'll second that.
Are we still in discussion though with
We-
the
no,
ordinance,
we're in
Only as amendment.
It's on the amendment now.
We are discussing the amendment now.
the amendment that has been,
Yes.
okay. Okay, so, I
Well,
wanna share my
everybody-
thoughts, but I wanna.
Everybody's had time to read it, so, instead of sitting here and going through line for line that, Councilman King presented, I just call for the question and let's vote on the amendment.
Well, I wanted to share my thoughts, that's why I wanted to know if anybody else had discussions about it. But you already called for the question. So I didn't have the opportunity. So what do we do now?
Well, someone has to second, and
Somebody's
then
gotta
it has to be
second. Oh,
voted
okay.
on. So,
But right now, the floor is open for discussion.
no, not right now. Because he's got the motion. Now, if someone seconds it, it goes through vote,
Okay.
or if they don't second, it dies. So he's called for the question, he's made the motion, someone will have to second it. If no one seconds, it dies.
And it go back to open discussion?
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a second to the call for the question? Would you like to withdraw that to allow?
I will,
Okay. So now we're open discussion, okay.
yes.
I'm trying to do my best to ensure that I'm doing research so I can get credible resources and sources of not. And I've had conversation with my colleague, Mr. Grant, and I do differ in a little areas of, in between the abandoned and vacant. So I have something here that I wanna share. So over 1,000 municipalities now have vacant property registration ordinance. So it seems unlikely that it's violating rights or it would have been challenged in the court in different places, okay? This is what I'm getting throughout my research. One of the things that I have is, I understand, Mr. King, you had shared personal information in our public conversations about a home that you have, that you shared that it was vacant, right? On
My
your
neighbor,
property, your neighbor's.
my neighbor, it's not my home.
Okay, so are we also violating property rights when we ask people to register their vehicles? And these are questions that I have, okay, cause we need to make sure abandoned and vacant, we need some distinguish, and I think is my understanding that we don't even want the word vacant, right? Would you, I mean, we need to make sure that there's some distinguish there. There are costs to the city for providing services to protect vacant properties from fire break-ins, et cetera. We had this conversation prior, okay? The cost charged for registration should be part of the amount that we're gonna be able to use, so that way our city can also handle that, right? How are we gonna pay for enforcing a policy that we wanna put into place? So giving a fine for not registering is reasonable, and I understand where you mentioned that statement, and you wanna cut it off, right? I think we did cut it off at 0. Is that my understanding, that if you registered at $0?
Residential is.
Residential, okay.
If it's category 1, and well, and it's according to which, the amended ordinance, there is no.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So-
what we were discussing, I'm sorry.
If the property owner then refuses to pay the fine for the extended period of time, then they should be treated like anyone else refusing to pay a fine to the government, which may include having a lien on a place on a property. I don't know, is that true at this point? I don't know. These are thoughts are coming, I'm trying to formulate into sentences here. There can be expectations to make people facing financial hardship. We talked about this, I think we had a public conversation where nursing home mentioned, you know, what if somebody went to a nursing home and it wasn't reported? We're not gonna take away any properties or invade anybody's property rights. That's how I see it. And that's how I'm trying to get some information. So, are we really violating property rights if we have registration? I mean, there's just different ways that we can go about creating a policy to ensure that it's being, not in violation. But I also have concerns that if there is a property that is abandoned, is not registered, that it's vacant. I'll give you a great example. I had a senior, an elderly senior, who I shared this with Mr. Grant and also to his city administrator, that in front of her home, there's a home that looks abandoned. Well, we don't know that. I don't know that. How do I know that? How do we know that, right? So, but what's happening is we have individuals that are unhoused, that are coming to these homes and coming in. I actually shared my concerns to, Chief Rice about this. Now, this elderly senior who walks every day from her home down to Kenneth Street to go to worship is afraid to walk because she has seen some individuals come and knock and like looking around just to find a way. Now, do we wanna make sure there's extra police in there? Perhaps, but that individual came into that home unhoused, that doesn't belong to him, and the property owner has not done anything to make sure the house is up to date, and that house has been breakthrough. It was a break-in there. So, are we not trying to have a policy where we can create a safe, thriving community around our area? And how do we make sure that that vacant though has something, not that we're gonna come in and say, we're gonna inspect. I don't know where you see that on that policy. That's why I want to make sure we have clarity. How do we go about that? Cause I think vacant and abandoned kinda go hand in hand, but how do you make sure you make that distinguish? So, those are my thoughts, those are my concerns. I'm echoing what I have heard from the community and what this elderly senior has shared with me. And if the Chief Rice can comment on that area, I don't wanna point out any specific, communities, but like, we know we've seen houses that are abandoned and they're vacant.
Mhm.
They're both, nothing has been done, so how do we move forward? How do we move forward? I mean, with this policy now, with all these strike-throughs that we receive from my colleague here, are gonna allow that to happen?
It covers all the,
Is there accountability? I mean, this is something that I would like to hear from the staff to see if they have that support. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So-
I don't know, have you seen it, Tim? Have you seen my amendment?
So there's a lot of strike-throughs. I'm sure everybody has seen this policy now, and it's just, I mean, it's weak, and it's specifically to abandoned properties. I mean, to establish a registration for vacant has been strike through.
Mm-hmm. I just look at it, that's not the issue. It says is the property a nuisance? Is it unhealthy, unsafe, like your neighbor? We got the people living in there, is the grass 4 feet high? You know, it's not a matter whether it's vacant or not, it's whether
Well,
it is a nuisance, and therefore, you know, they're not doing anything with it, but letting it collapse.
People with vacant properties, I'm assuming, still pay their taxes on said property, unless they're just not obeying the law to begin with, right? So, I mean, you raised the question of them having to pay fees to pay for the resources for the city to provide services. My only answer to that is they already pay taxes.
Mhm.
So why have the additional additional fee just because.
Well, there won't be a
Well, we'll
fee.
mark it off.
I
We'll
know,
take
well,
the
she
fees.
raised that.
Yeah.
Well,
they-
that's
I
where
was
the
kinda
fees
mad.
were coming.
So I was also gonna clarify, there are no fees proposed in the original
on residential.
vacant.
As long as it's maintained like
Yeah.
Mr. King's neighbor's property.
Right.
There's
There is
nothing.
no fee.
So I think we all
There's
pretty much
nothing.
agreed on that part.
Yeah.
So if it's vacant, we just don't wanna register, we don't wanna acknowledge if the building, the home is vacant? The outside can look great, but what if the inside is not up to date, not up to code, what, I mean,
Almost,
I don't know, I just feel,
I just wanna give you a scenario we went through one time. So we had a house in the city that was real bad, I mean real bad. Had a complaint from the lady, so I go over there and talk to her. This lady she's real upset, she's in fear, because she's got grandkids that come over there. When you know that there's rats, all kind of stuff that's coming out of the house, like you said, there's homeless people that are going in and out. So there is no way that we couldn't find who owned the house. It was there, but we couldn't find them. So I'm just giving you a chance. When she was that upset, then I put myself in her shoes. There was nothing we could do at the time, and it cost the city how much to clean that house up?
Just a couple $1,000, about, I think or close to 3,000,
if
if I
that
remember
costs the
correctly.
city, that costs taxpayer money.
That's
I
right.
think everybody wants to have a recourse for those situations. I don't think that his amendment gets rid of that, in my opinion. I think something like that would be addressed. That's
It
just the
is.
way that I read it.
It is, it's addressed.
Just what and we could debate that.
All right, anyone else? Councilman Pace, you made a motion, or, I'm sorry, we've got a amended motion.
You've got an amended motion, you need to vote on the amendment.
So we need to vote for or against Mr. King's motion.
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to amend fails. All right, so now we had a motion on the floor
And second.
for the original ordinance,
Yes, sir.
and did we have a second?
We did.
Yes, Mr. Woodward did.
And
Okay.
we need to
So we
open
have
it
a
up
motion
to,
and a second.
open it up to the public.
Yeah, you'll have to have public comment,
Okay.
or council discussion, public comment, and then,
Okay,
But-
let's open it up for public comment, at this time. Is there anyone that would like to give public comment on the vacant building ordinance? Vacant and abandoned building ordinance 2023-1.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, sir.
You all know that I work at the Museum of Cherokee in South Carolina. And so I live right outside the city limits, but on my way to work here in town, I come down Church Street on my way to the museum, and I go back home on Tugelo. And on both those streets, just where I drive, just on those two streets, there are multiple abandoned derelict houses. And I have taken pictures of some of those, and I've shared some of those with some council members. I'm very concerned about that because I've seen people coming in and out of the houses. I actually went on the property, and it might have been illegal for me to do that. It's private property, but it apparently nobody knows who owns the property, and they are in horrible condition. And my concern is, can the city do anything about that? Like claiming abandoned property. Some of these properties have been abandoned for like 20 years. And if you follow the route that I'm talking about, you can do that on your own, and it's very noticeable where those houses are. I would really like to see something done about that. They are hazards to the community and the neighbors. So I'm hoping what you all are doing here will address this, where they could be taken over for tax purposes. I know no taxes have been paid on these properties for years. And there, you know, there's one trailer there that has actually collapsed in on itself. The roof is caved in, the walls are falling in, but no, apparently no one can do anything about that. I'm hoping what you folks are talking about addresses situations like that. I am trying to make Walhalla a better place to live. I mean, I've lived here all my life, not yet. I haven't lived all my life yet. But my kids are here, my grandkids, they want to stay here. They have to deal with the same thing I'm talking about now because they have to take the same route in and out of town. So that's my point. Something has to be done. Something should be done to make Walhalla a better and safer place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else would like to speak? Yes.
I think I'm Francoise Fussell, and I live on Playground Road, and I walk in town with my dogs, and I think I know the one you were referring to here on College Street. And the strange thing about that is, you know, I like to talk to people when I see them, and I used to ask that man that was building that weird house and had that little weird thing, I said, so when are we going to have the big open house? I want to see what's going on in that little house. And he said, real soon, and his car used to have a Florida tag on it. And then one day I never saw him anymore. And I always wondered, did he die? Yeah, what happened to him? He's just gone. He's gone with the wind. Like, and that little thing has collapsed. And you know there are vermin in there. I mean, we all know that. So anyway, I'm just chiming in with I would like to see something. Just take it away, you know. Well, we don't have to pay for it. Right? Okay. Thank you all for what you're doing here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? And I would like to apologize. The public comment should have been before we discussed the ordinance. And that slipped by me. All right, but we have had our public comment and we have discussed, and now we have a motion and a second on the floor on the,
Have we discussed?
we have discussed your
The
amendment.
amendment.
We have not discussed, now we can discuss the original ordinance.
The only discussion I have now that we're looking at, why are we treating residential structures different than non-residential structures?
What page are you on?
I'm on 7 of the ordinance. We're a business, we're going to charge them fees, but residents we're not. I'm happy with not
We
charging
changed that
residents
because
fees.
that was part of your request, the
That-
last discussion.
And my point is then why aren't we taking it off of the businesses?
The main goal, help me if I'm misspeaking, Mr. Burton, but the main goal on that section of this ordinance is to create businesses to move forward on opening and having operation and revenue, and instead of just letting them sit empty. Am I explaining that somewhat right?
That's part of the intent, yes, that's
Yes.
correct. The overall part is the safety, so we'll know, we'll have contact information, et cetera, but the other second tier, tertiary, if you wanna call that, whatever, however you wanna classify it, is to encourage folks that do have vacant buildings in the business district to get somebody in there. It not only helps them, it helps maintain it, and ultimately it helps the city too, so, that is an underlying goal as well. Yes, sir.
Me and you went over some scenarios, so I'm gonna ask you,
Okay.
my wife gets sick, she's out for a year, what do I need to do as far as our business wise?
You would just let us know, hey, it's vacant, and you would be good to go because there is waivers, exemptions from the registration fee, and probably we would consider that a financial hardship because someone's sick, debilitated, not able to work, number 5 there, and we could, y'all maintain it to code, just let us know, hey, it's empty, everything's still okay with it, and Obviously, you wouldn't have to divulge a bunch of health details to us, but we can classify that as a financial hardship and waive the registration fee.
Same again, I bought a building, I spent as much money as I can on it at the time, but I don't have any more to keep it open, I'm to a point that I can't go any further.
You can make that, also, you could present us with a financial hardship. However, if the building's being actively marketed, for sale over, 12 months, if you can't sell it, obviously you don't get penalized because of the real estate market. There, we can waive the registration fee for that. And if they're actively renovating it up to 12 months. So they may be out of money, but in 6 months, 8 months, they have more funds, they can go in and do some other kind of work on it. That registration fee would be waived as well.
Puts the government squarely in the middle of a businessman and his business. It's like Ronald Reagan said in '76, when he was running for president the first time, he said, people are looking for government to be the answer. Government's not the answer, government's the problem. And that's generally how it works. We start reaching into business. Government doesn't do business well. It inhibits business. It inhibits freedom. What we do well is meeting the common needs of the people that they cannot meet for themselves. When we go beyond that, we generally mess it up.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to the discussion?
I think my comments as far as the business goes is, it's a case-by-case different scenarios. I think if the end goal is to promote a vibrant Main Street with the intentions to support a business plan or the resources that we have and to try to get a business plan going, and I think this business guide also has resources, I was skimming through it. But is the end goal to make sure that we can continue having our local economy be boosting with our business being vibrant? If that individual is facing a hardship or that business owner, I don't think the government's gonna intervene if there is, like I said, it's a case by case, but
Right.
if my understanding here, the end goal is to have would you want vacant buildings on Main Street, not to have businesses being exchange of cost and
I want it vibrant, but I
goods?
want freedom over all that.
And, yeah, and freedom, I think everybody here understands freedom is at, at the core of really our democracy here, but if the end goal is our business, if we go back to the business, okay, the fees here, well, do we wanna consider reducing that? Do we wanna go back to is that what's concerning, that the fees are
No,
high?
I'm not into the whole vacant, I'm not into the whole vacant building part,
Right.
but I'm saying, if
But
this
the
is what
business-
you're gonna pass, I'm not gonna pass it. But if this is what you're gonna pass, are you at least gonna be consistent with businesses and residents and not treating businesses one way and residents another?
And,
And I think
and
those are
another
two
thing
different categories.
everybody's gotta realize, people will move into the city limits and suburb areas for rules and regulations to keep their property values up, their safety up, we pay for that because we want to. We wanna live in the city limits. If we didn't want these rules and regulations, I'd go out in the country and live. And nobody can say a thing about what I have. But I moved into the city limits for that perfectly for that reason. And these businesses come here too, and we're trying to generate that for the people that want that.
And if you make it hard on them, they'll move out.
Well,
Don't make it hard on
I'm
them.
not making it hard on anybody. I was fine with the fees on residential, and you didn't like that. 2 weeks ago you didn't, or a month ago you didn't mention the commercial.
Keith, I
And
mentioned
somebody's gotta
about how
pay
I
for
said
this.
with the vacant, you guys came to this trying to get me on board, and you guys came, well, let's nix it about this.
Well,
I'm about nixing all the
it
vacant casual.
takes man hours to maintain all this stuff. You have to collecting a $50 fee from a business owner is pennies.
Have you done business?
I have.
Well, you must have just had oodles of money doing
Oh,
business,
I'm sure
because
I did.
that's not me in doing
Well,
business.
let me tell you, this,
$50 means
All right,
a big,
that's
big
order.
stuff doing business.
Order,
Call for the vote. Are we ready?
yes,
call for the question.
Question, yes.
I'll second.
All right, we have a call for the question. We'll vote
Yes, you'll have to vote on the call for the question to end the debate.
to end debate. All right.
Yes.
All those in favor of the call for the question to end debate?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there is any. So, we're back to the ordinance approval or disapproval. All those in favor of ordinance 2023-1, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Ordinance passes. All right, we are going now to first reading of ordinances. The first one is ordinance 2023-2, and it's an ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance 1996-4, and to establish the minimum regulations governing the regulation of burning of leaves, trash, and other waste and materials outdoors by residents and commercial businesses in the city of Walhalla. Mr. Burton, is there anything you'd like to add? We've talked about this before. I think everyone's familiar with it, but.
Yes, sir, we did. This just clarifies the ordinance in respect to the new DHEC and South Carolina Forestry Commission regulations. It does also add a piece for commercial folks. There's a couple of bars, restaurants that want to do some outdoor burning. Instead of them having to call up there every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or there's no burning on Sunday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday night and get a burn permit every week, they could forget. They can get one for the year, pay a small fee, and then that way, if the fire department does get a complaint of, about smoke or something, they can say, okay, they've got that. They'll obviously still go investigate, but it just lets us know, okay, there is supposed to be something in that area. We'll just go check, or fire staff will just go check and make sure it's good.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion on this ordinance?
I'll make a motion that we accept ordinance 2023-2.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? This is first reading, title only.
I do have a comment that
Sure.
I know it's the first reading, but I'm considering this. If you look at page 2, on the fines and fees for residential, I may be ignorant in how those numbers came up, but I do see the first offense is $0. I'm considering that we should, look at the second offense being 25, and then going up to the third 50, and then 100 for the fourth, and then ban for a year. And I say that specifically the residential, because if you're a newcomer, you're not gonna look at these policies, and if you break the law, you don't know. As a residential, that's where I'm looking at as far as the cost, but I'm considering that this is just a first reading discussion, but I see that the fees are quite, very much different in commercial, which I feel those are different. Commercial, I think business, is that right?
Yeah.
It might be more knowledgeable, well-established. I'm thinking as residential to consider those fees to be reduced for the max to be 100, not 200. And then the fifth offense is banned for 1 year. Banned for 1 year, what does that mean?
It means that they won't be issued a permit and they're no longer allowed to burn, and if they do burn, they'll go talk to the judge.
Okay, I just wanted to make that comment. I know this is the first reading.
And if you remember, Chief Bates kind of weighed in on this discussion, what it costs for his crew to go out to one of these incidents.
Right. So
It's-
I think we need public education awareness,
Yeah.
we need to do some campaigning, but I understand.
But,
I'm thinking
you know,
residential.
and literally the first offense, they just come out and get warned and talked to, so they should be informed of the the situation at that time, and it's no fine.
Well, the first offense is saying 0 fine, but they were still costing our fire department to go over there.
Yeah,
That's still,
it is.
so,
We're getting,
So-
they're cutting a break.
Yeah, so would you
Right,
wanna
but we
make
need
the
to-
first offense $25,
No, it's just,
or is it
No.
leave
wants
it
to
at
lower the
0?
scale.
I think we need more campaigning, but I mean, if we're gonna, and maybe this is a conversation I need to have with our fire chief, just to see
Mhm.
the amount, but I think of residential in the essence of, you know, individuals that maybe are moving in here. If we're not having promotion and they do violate that, I understand you got the defender, like the, what is it called, like the ones that offend all the time. It's now, it's not,
Repeated.
the repeated offenders, but that's my thought on that. But yeah, I think if I have another conversation, it's the first reading, that's my thoughts.
I'm like this when I was growing up, Daddy told me I messed up one time, and he said, you know, don't do that again. I didn't do it again. I did. On the second offense, I got a spanking. So for the most part, I think that, you know, they come out there and they say, hey, this is wrong, you don't need to do this. You know, that's a 0. They're not gonna charge them anything. So the second offense, they should've known.
Right, but how, I guess that would be just me looking at some
Yeah,
numbers.
they should've known.
Indirectly been educated.
Well, yeah,
But just
and
a thought.
after you've done it one time and you've been forgiven, 0 fine the next time, why you would wanna give them a break the second time, I don't know, but
Well, do we
I'm
have a
worth
problem with that,
discussing.
with repeated? Oh, yeah, yeah, it's worth
I'm worth-
discussing.
Yeah, for the most part, so you tell me one
I
time.
I don't know, that's a Chief Bates question, I
Yeah.
guess.
We do have a problem. I can speak from experience and still, there's
Like
just
repeated
some,
offenders?
yeah, there's repeat offenders out there that just, and in fact, I know some of them have been to the judge before. So, they just, okay, they'll put it out, and as soon as we're out of eyesight, it's lit back up, and they're doing it again. Most of it is on Sundays. Now, there's some, occasionally you'll get some folks that are just cleaning up debris around the yard. They'll throw in some lumber, some plywood, or something. It's like, you know, oh, I didn't know I couldn't burn that, you know, and that stuff, okay, you know, they'll pull it out, put that out. But the limbs and brush and stuff, they can continue to burn. A lot of times, it's all people just burn on Sunday. They get all their yard work done on Saturday, and they don't have time to light it off, and it's gonna rain on Monday, or it's gonna rain Sunday afternoon, so they'll try to burn it. So that's where a lot of it does come through. So,
But it's illegal to burn on Sunday.
correct, it's against the ordinance, yes.
Okay,
All right,
we'll keep it as
so
is for now.
we
Just
need
a
to,
conversation.
And just to speak, you know, in the past, I mean, we could fine them up to $200. Really, they, you know, they go straight to see the judge. Now we kind of give a little bit of, you know, get, you know, shame on you, and then you get, you know, shame on you a little bit harder. So, it does break down a fee structure, but.
Okay, well, I appreciate the clarity.
Yep.
all right. Have a motion and a second, I believe. Any
Yes.
other discussion? All in favor of first reading of ordinance 2023-2, aye.
Alright,
Opposed? There is none. Alright, let's go to ordinance 2023-3. This is an ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance is 1980-4 and 1987-6, and replace with an ordinance to provide for regulations regarding the control of dogs. Mr. Burton, any comments?
I'll probably, if you have, I'll have to defer to Chief Rice and Ms. Myers here if you have any specific questions. Some of this does just clean up language about, in the past, the ordinance allowed police officers to dispatch a certain animal on the spot. We'll take that away and let animal control handle that. Some of that, obviously, rabies is still, inoculation still required. There is, and I believe Ms. Melendez asked last time, a definition for vicious animals, because that was a question. And this does reinstate, in fact, just the leash law. Originally, the leash law was passed, and then sometime later it was amended that an animal or dog under the owner's voice command or anything like that was permissible. But staff recommends going back towards the leash law as it was originally written. and I apologize for not putting Tim's definition in the 200-page packet. I guess I forgot that, but I can pull up, if you want to discuss the definitions, and we'll probably need to make this as an amendment to add the definition to the ordinance. Vicious animal means an animal with a propensity, tendency, or disposition to attack, to cause injury, or to otherwise endanger the safety of human beings or domestic animals, or any animal which attacks a human being or domestic animal one or more times without provocation, or any animal which has been quarantined for the second time for biting humans. And that's a staff recommendation of a definition, so if y'all would like to amend that.
Oh, I make a motion that we add that in the form of an amendment.
Yeah, I second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on this, amending the ordinance?
See it every day in insurance, makes sense.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, so it's been amended, we've added the definition. Now, is there any other discussion on anything in the ordinance?
I had a question, Brad. There was also, unless I don't have an up-to-date copy of the ordinance, it says it replaces ordinance 1984 and 1987-6.
Yes.
Should we include 1976-15? You later
I
showed
did-
me that one.
I did find that.
I've got a copy of it.
So we have had about 3 ordinance in regards to the dog leash laws?
Yeah, it's kind of
Yes.
consolidating them all.
Yeah.
And I'll have to look. Do you have the original, the one from 2000?
Oh, no, I'm in the 76.
Let me look at the 90. That may have been repealed already.
I would think
just
it
wanted
was.
to.
So just for clarity, I know we have an audience here, it's illegal to have a dog, your chihuahua, your dog, a dog that's considered vicious, we're gonna add, in the street without a leash,
Correct.
inside the city.
Any dog, essentially.
1990-12, while it didn't specifically call out 1976 ordinance, it does repeal in section 6 ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict with the 1990-12 ordinance are repealed to the extent necessary to give the ordinance full force and effect. So anything in that older 1976 ordinance has been overwritten by the 1990 ordinance.
1991.
So 1990 ordinance, we're not changing that.
No, that's the
are we?
livestock, that's the wrong one. That's for livestock, there's another one for dogs.
Yeah.
In
I thought so.
2000,
Are we,
I think it's in the
fining
other,
people?
I think it's in the other packet.
I don't know what the penalty is for it. Does it say?
No. Oh, yeah, section 6, penalties for violation.
What was the last?
$200,
Did we do
It's,
this at the meeting?
$200,
It's a misdemeanor, guilty of a
30 days in
misdemeanor.
jail or falls. 200 days and $200 in 30 days.
No, we talked about this at a council meeting. It was the February
So,
council
Mr.
meeting.
Burton, we could pass this as first reading with what we have, and then if you find this, then we could amend it before we vote on it again, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. You can make amendments. Okay, here's 1987-6, and I apologize for not having it in your,
Another one? Oh, that's the one that's on here, yeah.
not having that. This is the one that repealed the strict leash and went to, no dog shall be allowed to run at large in town of Walhalla beyond the premises of the owner unless secured by a leash or under supervisory control, verbal, visual, disciplinary. So this ordinance would replace that one. and it would replace the 1976 one as well. This new one.
So, we had a question. In the 1976 one, it mentions cruelty to animals prohibited. And it doesn't look like that has been passed down. Should this be a separate ordinance, or since we're talking about animals now, they had put it in 76, thought, well, let's put it at the back of that one.
You could add that to that, yes, sir.
There's probably a state ordinance on cruelty to animals already, is there not, Chief?
But like you say it's good to have it in the city because it's easier for you to deal with it.
I worked on this, part of this, had some input with that, and, I did see the cruelty to animals before. My opinion is that maybe that should be a separate, because cruelty, this one deals specifically with dogs.
Okay.
Whereas I think if cruelty to animals would apply to any animal, not just dogs.
I see.
Whereas this one.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
Could we ask Celia to look into,
Yeah, we
having
could
an
come up with
ordinance
one for
on
cruelty to animals,
cruelty
surely.
to animals?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
cause I was gonna say, having an animal on a leash and it's in the property, but there's some not good maintenance of that dog, that's where that ordinance would kick in.
Well, on the
To-
property, you don't have to have your dog leashed as long as it
No,
can't
but-
come off the property.
Yeah, under.
Right, but
yeah,
if
on
it's
private
leashed to the
property.
point where they look like they've been neglected, there's no food coming to them, that's,
Totally
Yeah, it's
different.
cruelty.
that's cruelty, right? So,
Mhm.
okay. And just so I can make sure, if somebody violates and brings a dog inside the city hall without a leash, you're gonna pay at least $200 or less, right, a fine, guilty of a misdemeanor, or go to jail for 30 days, or both, correct?
Yes.
Not to exceed 200.
Not to exceed, so it could be anything from $1 to 200, is that up to the discretion of the
Judge.
judge? Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on this one?
I'd like to just point out one correction.
Yes, sir.
Just, I think it's a typo. In the section 2, howling, diseased, and destructive dogs, it's
What page?
first page,
Section
section 2, first paragraph, the end of that sentence. I think hereby declared a nuisance if said noise. Is that not what we're
Yeah,
That's
shooting
right.
for?
I agree, yeah.
I don't know if we have to have an amendment for that,
Yeah, we do.
but I did.
Yeah, we do.
I also would like to add to the amendment, I'd make a motion for that to be amended, and also in section 4, there's only one paragraph in section 4, confinement of animals in heat, and it says confine such an animal and keep it concealed from view. I would like to scratch and keep it concealed from view. Because folks will have a dog pen where the dog is confined, nothing can get to it, but now we're making them,
Wait.
I don't know
Is
what
it?
you put up, boards or something around their dog pen, or,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
so that's, as a motion, I'd like to make that amendment.
I'm a little bit lost here. On section 2,
Just changing it to if.
Yeah,
I
it's
think it's a
just,
grammar error. Yeah.
First paragraph, just a word error.
okay. Okay, well, we can correct that.
yeah. Well, I'll second, Mr. King's motion for those two amendments. Did you see the next one that he's talking about in section 4? Just strike and keep it concealed from view.
Yeah. All right, we got a motion and a second to amend.
While.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None, so it's amended.
Okay.
All right, anything else we want to change?
Well, I'll make a motion to move on ordinance 2023-3 as amended.
as amended. Okay. Second,
Second?
any other questions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? There is none. Alright, let's go to ordinance 2023-4. This has to do with, well, it's to repeal and replace ordinance 2006-5 to regulate false nuisance alarms to which public services in the city of Walhalla has to respond. I think we're all familiar with this one. Chief Bates and Chief Rice has talked to us about this. Mr. Burton, is there anything you wanna add?
Again, this, in the past, we've just had an ordinance, to regulate false fire alarms. Police department gets, in a bind sometimes with false burglar alarms or other type of, law enforcement alarms. This just gives them a method to, encourage the property owner to have that fixed.
I'd like to make a motion on ordinance 2023-4.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm concerned about we're once again separating residential and commercial. I would like to make all the fees in there reflect evenly across the board, and that they would, reflect what was written in the old ordinance, which is,
So this is on page 2 that he's talking about, section 3, if I'm looking at correctly.
right, page 2,
Section 3 is service charge.
service charge. I would like to amend this. I make a motion to amend it to reflect the same treatment of residential and commercial in this matter, but adopt the fee structure from ordinance 2006-5. Do you have access to that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's just a long time of variance.
Okay,
So
hold on,
it is
I was looking at the fees, Keith, did I miss the times per year?
Well, I mean, from 2006 to 2023, the cost of making a fire call is tremendously higher.
Well, it's higher in the old one,
Yeah.
it's higher in the old one, we've come down in the price, that's what I was saying. I think it needs to be, I don't think we need to come down in the cost of
Okay.
this.
I'm trying to find, oh, okay, I see where you're at.
I need to ask a cheaper question if it's okay.
2 false alarms.
Absolutely.
How long does it, so you get a business, how long does it take you to, like a big business or a big building? How long does it take you to clear
So
that
you want
building of alarms? You have to
residential
clear every
and
room.
commercial to be that?
I think that stands fair.
Get someone there to make the building available if it is secure, doors, windows, a lock. Once inside there, it depends, particularly some of the larger buildings, just use examples of government buildings, would be like DSS. For example, that's a very large building, very complicated setup in there, it takes an enormous amount of time to get through that building, and make sure that it's secure. And I would say, I'm speaking on that, Chief Bates, who's not here, same with them, when they go into that, for the fire alarm, it takes significantly more resources to handle that side of the building than what a house would do.
Give me a time frame, how long it takes.
I mean, it could be well over an hour, potentially, on a bigger building, sometimes maybe even longer. A house, a residential setting, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes potentially to check that house out, depending on the size of it,
So there is a reason for, in your opinion, commercial buildings should be more than residential.
Chief Bates and I met and discussed early on about the differences between the two, the resources required to on my side for a residential alarm, we may send one officer, for example, to check that alarm. If it's a commercial business, we're probably, or a larger building, we're probably gonna send more than one officer to that, so we can have additional safety layers for the officer to be able to cover more ground in a short amount of time. And I know, with fire, or they take more apparatus to commercial buildings than maybe opposed to a small residential.
In either case, would the cost be covered in the residential paying less? Would the cost be covered of just one officer showing up or one fire truck showing up?
The amount of the fine in the residential.
The fine, you know, there's no fine for the first two.
Correct.
So this is not a matter of, hey, whoops, you know, we've got grace for whoops. This is not, you know, this is not caring. This is why a fine's being instituted, because there's no reason to make you care. And so now there's a reason to make you care. And what I'm just thinking, I understand that there's more cost involved with, we roll more trucks in a commercial building, but whatever we roll anyhow on a residential, they're still not paying the cost of that.
Correct.
So I'm like, why not? What we want to do is get the person to take notice. Hey, look, come on. You're costing us all a lot of money by just not getting a handle on your alarm system.
I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize, but I believe on the, after fourth, fifth offense, I was thinking that in the proposed ordinance, that fine potentially increases after it gets into just an excessive amount in a 12-month period.
On residential, first and second offense is 0, and then it's 60, 120, 240, and then the max on the sixth is 480.
What's the most alarms you got in one night? Can you answer that?
I'm afraid to say that last time that we discussed this, we had the one that popped
Yeah.
into mind. Since the last time we discussed it, we've probably been there 30 times.
Residential or commercial?
Commercial.
Do you
Incredible.
have residentials worth
Incredible.
noting?
We do have some repetitive ones. Without calling any addresses, there are a handful of those. They're smaller in number. Usually we have one or two there, and eventually we're able to find someone to talk to about it, and they seem to resolve the problem quicker than some of the commercial ones. Commercial ones, I would say, are more neglected.
Right.
But they lock up and go home, and then 3 hours later, the alarm's going off, and we go.
Right.
Spend a lot of time there, find nothing, and tomorrow it's wash, rinse, and repeat.
Oh, can't have that.
But in a big building, some of the, like you, I don't wanna name names, but some of the larger facilities in Walhalla, it does take a lot longer, time-wise, to make sure there's not a problem.
We treat every one of them the same as if someone were inside it. So when we go, even though we went yesterday, the day before, we go through there, check those doors, windows again. So it is very time consuming.
So, I mean, just to clarify, the amendment,
I'm trying to figure
the
that
motion that
out.
I've made for the amendment, that there's no distinction, it's be written with, there's no distinction between residential and commercial, and the first two, and then the service charge would be taken from 2006, ordinance 2006-5. No charge for the first and second alarm call, third and fourth call $250 each, fifth $500, fourth $1,000. I just think they'll get on top of it.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Increases the fee.
That's, I think that Chief Rice and Chief Bates and Mr. Burton put a lot of work into this, and they supposed to know what they're doing, and they've probably got reasons that they did them that way. I just,
Well, Brandon, why were they set that, the fees? I mean, what was your reason?
I'm not exactly sure on the law enforcement side, but I know that $60 would probably cover just the time. Because if you go to a residential fire alarm, and we wouldn't necessarily penalize anybody that burnt something on their stove, cause it does happen, you get a false alarm, go out there, everything's okay. Those probably wouldn't, cause stuff happens and it's good to know that your fire alarm does work, but fire alarms that just repetitively go off, sometimes you go out there, you'll get a cancellation from the alarm company, or sometimes you have to go out there and wait. When you drive up, do your scene survey, and you don't see anything, you can put the other units back in service, but somebody probably still sits there and waits to either clear the building or, well, they have to wait on the key holder to get there. And sometimes it's been an hour, sometimes it's been 2. So that does cover it, and I think they felt like $250 right off the pot. Might have been a little bit steep, but we'll do. We'll do whatever y'all want us to do.
And you will also have cases where they have burglar alarms on their house that something as small as a mouse can set one off. Even if they're there, it could set it off. So, whatever y'all think. Where are we at? We had a.
We were just wondering if I could get a second, which I may not be able to get a second, but.
So basically, we're talking about increasing the fees for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yes, to go back to the original ordinance
And
fee
treating
structure.
everybody the same,
I'll
commercial.
second that. It seems like stuff's got more expensive in the last, 18 years? It's not getting any cheaper.
Yeah, and,
All right,
and plus
motion and a second. Any other discussion?
and just realize, this is false alarms. This is not that there's a problem at the property. It's if we go out there because of neglect on their system,
right.
basically.
We're not punishing people for legitimate.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, if they're having trouble with the alarm on a house, I just feel like $1,000 is too much. There's a difference in a 1,000 square foot house
Yeah.
and a 10,000 square foot school district office, county office. That's why I think there needs to be some leeway on fees.
Could you even do a prorated fee? Would that be too complicated for staff to keep up with? Like, you spent X amount of time on the scene, charge you per rata?
Yeah, we could figure
I
out
don't know if that'd be
a
too
rate.
difficult.
It wouldn't, because we have incident reports, and you could just calculate that fee based off the time
Yeah, that's
that you're
fair.
there. I mean, that is an option.
That's what I was thinking when he was talking about DSS, it could take 3 hours, and they're small commercial businesses, and they're big houses, and they might take longer. I don't know. It's worth thinking about.
All right, we need to vote
This is
on
first.
the
It is for sure.
amendment. We had a first and a second, is that correct? All those in favor of amending this motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
And I'm gonna think on this. I
We-
just need
we
time
got-
to process this, but
we
I
got
agree with
time.
you to a sense. That's,
I think prorated would make sense.
It scared me, Keith, if you agree with me.
No.
I'm getting cold feet on it.
no,
Yeah,
we
this is
got
first
a
reading, so
month
we
to
have some time.
kind of figure this out.
All right,
We can do next month.
Yeah.
all right, we'll go back to the original ordinance as presented.
Yes.
We had a motion and a second on that, I do
This
believe.
is-
Yes.
Is there any
Yes.
other discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 2023-4? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Okay, we're gonna move right along here. Let's go to ordinance 2023-5. An ordinance to establish local historic property designation program and design review. Mr. Burton.
Where do I start? The planning commission did review this again. They did vote on this. They had public review and voted on this on March the 13th. It is a voluntary program. Anyone interested would come to the council petition to be there. It'd have to be enacted by ordinance, should they desire to do a zoning, do a historic district. If you want me to go through and we can go through the entire ordinance again, or if anyone has any specific questions before y'all get, I'll be more than happy to answer that. I think this is the same thing.
The whole thing?
This-
No.
I don't think it is. I think everybody's read this several times. If
There-
somebody would like to make a motion on this, then we can, discuss it, and then if we have questions, you can help us with those.
Motion.
Motion on ordinance to approve ordinance.
23.5.
Yeah,
I second.
2025, have a second. All right, now it's open for discussion.
On section 5, I'd like to take the on this, historic property register, on 1, it says initial inclusion. I'd like to strike that and to say city's historic register shall be voluntary and require the approval of the property owner.
Section 5, Dave,
Yes, sir.
and which?
That's 1, on the
Okay.
historic property register. I'd like to strike the initial inclusion on, and just put city's historic register shall be the voluntary and require the approval of the, business, of the property owner. I just wanna take the initial inclusion out and strike that out.
We did, Councilman Underwood, we did discuss that, and I understand the concern about a time period, and I think, I do agree, I think cleaning that initial
Okay.
up would just clean it up. That way, there's no, in future councils or future time, there's no ambiguity. It just says, any addition to the register is strictly voluntary. There's no initial or.
So it'll just start with the city's historic register.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that a motion? I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the amendment?
I have a question.
Does it have to do with this?
Yes, it does. It does have to do with this. And this in general. So you're taking that out, the initial inclusion. If someone deceases or sells a property and someone else inherits or owns it, does that mean that it's grandfathered into the restriction?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
really, okay. Okay.
But if I bought that property though, I knew that that's
You
fine.
knew that going in,
I knew
yeah.
that
I
I
get
would buy
that.
it, so it gives me a choice whether I want it or I don't want it.
I was just,
All
I'm
right.
just trying to clean the grammar.
Anything else on the amendment? All those, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna wait.
Oh, okay.
Wait on you.
You were jumping the gun on me. All those in favor of the amendment to the ordinance, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, I don't think there is any. All right, now, anything else on this ordinance anybody wants to bring up?
Yes, sir. Now, I talked about it quite a bit in the last, when we initially discussed this. And voluntary came from that discussion. Voluntary was added into this, and I can see the different places, but it still talks about historic districts. And that is not voluntary if you end up in a historic district. And that's where I go back to the same thing I said, that in Seneca, that is causing lower income people, well, it's causing everybody more hoops to jump through, but it's causing lower income people in those historic districts money.
Where are you at on the ordinance?
Oh, I'm in section 5.
D, C.
It's the same section we were,
Section C.
or,
C.
Section 4.
Designation of
well,
historic
it's
district.
mentioned different times, but it says section 5, it says recommendation and designation of historic districts and properties.
Still, I'm looking. All right, we're in,
The title of where the amendment happened, so
Yeah, it's in
Section 5.
big black letters on it. What page is that? One, two,
All right, I'm trying,
three,
initial
four, page
inclusion,
four.
all right, that was on B.
Right,
On the
it's-
first page.
It's the title of that section.
What's this?
So, and then, you know, it mentions that if you go further up the page into section 4, verse 3, it says recommend to the city council specific districts, sites, and then building structures and objects to be designated by ordinance. Well, if you're in a specific district, this is no longer voluntary for the people in that district. And I
They've
know
got to
everyone,
ask to be put on the, for it to be included as
Well, it
historic, is that
doesn't
correct?
say that for districts. I think that's the
You,
point.
you could be in the district but not be historic, because you have to list each property in the proposed, and they could petition the council. You may adopt the ordinance in full with any amendments or reject it. So you could, yes, physically be inside a box, but not be in it, so to speak, because your property is not in, it might be in the confines of that district on a map, but you did not agree for your property to be a historic district or a historic property, therefore you can be excluded from that district.
practically, I don't think that's how it'll work. I think it'll swallow it up. This is how it always goes. Once again, it's a slippery slope. You're getting on a slippery slope, and you're gonna encroach on people's property rights, and, I'm not gonna make an amendment. I'm just stating my views on it. I would say, you're gonna pass it? Wait and see. I grew up in a town like this.
Anyone else have any questions on the ordinance? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Are we ready? Everybody ready to vote?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of ordinance 2023-5? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, let's go to ordinance 2023-6. This is to amend the city code code of ordinance to allow for the conditional raising and keeping of chickens within residential districts of the city limits. Mr. Burton.
If I may, I'll defer to Ms. Myers because she has worked extensively on this one with members of the public and the planning commission, so.
Thank you, sir. Again, this was at the direction of council about a little over a month ago to look into this. The planning commission did have an initial review back in February, and then they held a public hearing this past Monday, March 13th, and recommended approval of this. We have had some members of the public right here recently in the last 2 months call and ask whether or not they can have chickens in their backyard, what the regulations would be. I will point out that in the animal ordinance, we state that if the acreage is 2 acres or more, then you can have chickens. However, in our zoning ordinance, it is not allowed in any zone, so we have a conflict. So whether or not this gets passed or not, we do need to fix that conflict. I did talk with the livestock agent over at Clemson Extension, Chris Talley. I received his email. I asked specifically, one, on these regulations on whether or not this was satisfactory for health, safety, welfare, both for animals and for humans, but also whether or not he recommended the half acre or a whole acre. He's the one who recommended the whole acre. I know planning commission had some concerns on how many properties this would affect, so you should have at your chair a map showing how many properties are 1 acre or more within the city. Just because it is yellow does not mean it would still be allowed, because it may not be a residential district. So you need to look at your zoning one as well. The properties that look kind of, taupish color, pink and orange, those are the ones in which it's going to be allowed, that also have the 1 acre or more.
Say that, I'm sorry, say that again, which ones it will be allowed on?
Anything that's a residential district, so on the one where is the overlay, I apologize, the colors didn't come out as well as I had hoped. But if you see the ones that looks kind of an orangey color, or even a, goldish taupe color, those are the ones that you'll see up underneath it, the label, recognizing that property is over 1 acre, and those also fall into our residential section. So if this were to pass, anyone on those properties would be allowed to register and have up to 4 domesticated female, no roosters, meeting these criteria, making sure they have adequate ventilation for the coops, make sure that they put their feed up, make sure they clean up after the chickens, things like that, to cut down on smells, bringing in predators, etc.
Flies.
Okay,
I'd like to make that a motion on ordinance 2023-6.
I see.
okay. Motion and a second, now we're ready to discuss.
Celia, did he mention, would his recommendation, this is what I was looking for earlier, if we would have taken this off the agenda, is to go in and talk to him. So I'm glad to hear you did. Did he mention, if you say you had 2 chickens, would he think a ½ acre would be okay, or smaller?
What I sent him is the exact wording of this ordinance, to where it says no more than 4, so up to 4. And he still recommended having the minimum of 1 acre, even if you choose to only have 1.
Even if you had 1 chicken?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, the way it's currently written in the animal ordinances is 2 acres or more, so this is making it more accessible already.
Yeah, I appreciate your work on it. I appreciate it being accessible. I just, the people that I think most need to keep chickens, it's not accessible to, because they don't own over 1 acre. I think of the Mill Hill. Those folks down there, I mean,
Those are 1/4 acre lots.
I know. I'm sure when, we talked about this last time, I'm sure when the Mill Hill was built, everyone had a chicken. Or more than 1 chicken, and they needed it, and I think they still need it, and I think if you went down there, you'd hear them. They're there, and I just hate it that they're illegal for trying to get by. Because they need it, because we all know food prices are out of sight. It's crazy. I don't know how people are surviving. And what can we do? Can we let them raise rabbits? No? No rabbits.
Well, according to this, it says where domesticated hens may be used for companionship, educational purpose, and non-commercial production of eggs in support of sustainable greening. So,
Give them a bedroom.
it's my understanding they're there for like a pet-friendly environment, right? They can't be, that's why roosters are not allowed.
Well, if you want to collect the eggs for your own purpose, then that's the non-commercial. You can do the eggs for yourself, you just can't sell them.
But you can't have them on
You
less
can't
than
be
an
a
acre.
commercial business selling eggs
Right.
at your home.
Still doesn't change anything on the lot size
You
though.
still need an acre.
No, you still need an acre, and I did look at other jurisdictions in the state. 1 acre is not out of the ordinary, some even do 2 to 5 acres.
As a minimum.
For 30,000 square feet is maybe,
And there's health reasons.
yeah, just
for
like,
it.
Well, in the wording of who's going, the size things have to be, all this, who's gonna be in charge of enforcing and checking all this? And you gotta build a hen house. You've got 40 or 50 hen houses all of a sudden open up on Mill Hill or wherever. You're gonna,
I hope they don't all come in on the same day for their permit.
yeah. I'm not in favor of having chickens, I'll
At
find
all
something else to
inside?
eat other than eggs. Just because I see a problem with it getting too big kind of thing. You got 2, you got 4, maybe I'm putting a 6, and now you got a complaint. You're gonna have to go put on your boots and go out there and count chickens, that's just me. I'm not gonna have them in my mind. I couldn't anyway.
Well, on all the land we're requiring for them to have, you're not gonna know they're there.
The 1 acre.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make an amendment to it. To me, something's better than nothing. But I'd like to make a amendment that, that they're allowed to kill the chicken when it stops laying. Cause it says here, no person shall slaughter any chickens within the city limits.
That's standard language. We have that with everything else in the animal ordinance as well.
Well, you're not gonna kill your dog, but killing a chicken,
It's also the same for cattle. You can't slaughter it in city limits. You can take it outside of city limits and slaughter, but you can't do it inside city limits.
Is that from DHEC safety reasons, or?
There are DHEC safety regulations on how to, slaughter and prepare, but this is city ordinance.
oh. Yeah, let's forget it, let's just vote on it. I call for a question.
Okay, we have a call for a question. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor of the call for the question to move to a vote?
Aye.
Aye. I think everybody's in agreement on that one. All right, everyone, in favor of ordinance 2023-6 dealing with the raising and keeping of chickens. All those in favor of first reading of this ordinance? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Don't think there is any.
Yeah.
Just one.
No, you're against. You don't want them, period, is
I
that?
don't want to.
Oh, okay.
So
All right. Well, you,
that's fine, so first
that's,
reading.
that's good, I understand.
That's right.
All right. Let's go to the next one, ordinance 2023-7. Amend the zoning chapter of the municipal code, city of Walhalla, to provide for short-term rentals, establishing regulations for such use and other matters related thereto. Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'll defer to Ms. Myers. She worked on this ordinance extensively and probably can answer any technical questions that you had. I know the planning commission did review that as well, so.
Yes, sir. Again, they reviewed initially in February and then held a public hearing and voted to recommend, approval to full council on March 13th. This would be an ordinance to establish, for regulations of short-term rentals. It would not ban short-term rentals. It would ask that they register with us. We make sure that they are fully aware of all city ordinances regarding sanitation, parking, etc. Just like our long-term rentals require a fire marshal inspection, short-term rentals does include a request to have, or a regulation that would include an inspection by the fire marshal when they are registered that very first time, when they receive that very first approval. It is not every time they want to rent their home or their Airbnb, just initially. And let's see here, a lot of the language does reflect some of the B&B language that we have now. We do ask that they identify an agent if the owner is not in town, to where we can get a hold of them should an emergency arise. Not that we would contact them every time there's a noise complaint, but we prepare for the worst and hope we never have to use it. Should an emergency arise, we need to be able to get in contact with the owner. You can see in the ordinance that there's some red line. These are the recommendations that Planning Commission made last week. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I don't know if you want me to go through this section by section, or if you want to ask questions instead.
So far, everything you've been saying has been really interesting. I'm kinda curious to what else you have to say.
What about,
Well, I guess we need to open it for discussion.
yeah, let's have a motion.
I'll
and,
make a motion to bring ordinance 2023-07 to amend the zoning chapter of the municipal court on short-term rentals.
Second.
Okay, now we've got it open for discussion.
Right.
And I think
Okay.
we've all probably, everybody's looked at it, and you may have some questions for Celia on it.
I got one. The section E, and the whole paragraph A is stricken, and it's, and I, where this is in black, it was already in there, I'm just confusing. Where it says a permit must be obtained for each rental, does that mean each time an Airbnb is rented out, they have to retain a permit?
No, sir, the unit itself, because it's possible that one owner will have
So
four
it's for the,
different
it's for the
units or two
property that's
different
being
units
rented,
within city.
period,
Mhm.
okay. Okay.
I have a question, Celia, about, a couple questions. The bottom of the first page, rooms should be rented for a maximum of 45 consecutive days. How long is you guys that work at Duke, David, how long is a power outage?
About that time, 30, 45 days.
Okay, so does it ever run 45? I mean, does it run 50?
Now, they've got it right down to, if they say it's gonna be 30 to 45 days, that's what it is, unless something happens, it's not, that they didn't, was unforeseen.
Yeah, I just wouldn't wanna exclude that. I know some people won't rent their houses out because of how it goes so often with rentals, but Duke maintains, if they don't take care of a property, that person's done. Because Duke knows they're in a real tight spot and they need all these rentals, so they make sure everybody maintains these properties. So what happens is a lot of people will rent for the power outage people, but they won't rent the house other
Duke
than
has nothing to do with the rentals, they just. and
But
I'm
if
gonna be-
anyone,
I'm gonna be very careful about what I say,
Yeah.
cause I work for them, so they don't
Yeah.
have nothing to do with the rental property.
well, now maybe I heard wrong, but I heard if they get complaints,
Those
that
employees,
employee,
they don't even
did
work
it.
for Duke.
No.
It is,
okay,
if I had to go somewhere, if Duke was to send me somewhere now, it's, sometimes they would, I'm either gonna rent a house, or I'm gonna take care of it myself, so.
okay.
yeah.
Well,
Take care of it
whatever the
myself,
case,
yeah.
I know a lot of people only rent to Duke employees, and I just didn't want our number of days stopping that from happening.
This is, what the planning commission decided on. Originally, we did have 14 days, cause that's the same as B&B. In hindsight, that was, not a wise decision on my part. They looked at anything from 14 to 90. The state code recognizes short-term rentals as 29 days or less. However, they specifically mentioned, Duke employee, outages when they would come up, or other conferences, retreats, and they made the decision to move it to the 45 days.
Okay. Could we say 45 or as long as the outage lasts? No, okay. Then, my other question is the R25 zoning district. So we're limiting this, that you have to be in an R25 zoning district? This, I'm sorry, it's in first page, subsection 6 of conditional uses. It says the following uses shall be permitted in any R25 zoning district subject to these conditions. It means it's not, if it's not R25, you can't do it?
No, sir. R25 is the only one that actually spells out the conditions. R15, R10, general residential, they refer back to R25.
So you still can?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
It's just that I don't need to change the language in each of the sections. I only need to change it in the one because the others reference.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, do we have an ordinance like this already established around our municipal in Macondo County?
For short term?
Yes. In our sister cities?
Seneca has
Seneca
one.
has one.
Yes, Seneca has one.
Okay.
It's several years old.
I'm gonna throw something out here and, you guys can think about it. I'm not gonna try to amend this tonight, but I think 12 adults in a house is too many. I wouldn't wanna live next to a house that had been rented to 12 adults for 2 weeks. or
My
3
family
weeks.
couldn't stay in Walhalla.
Darn.
Darn, that's killing him.
I mean, when if you have a group of people that rent a house for, whether it's a weekend or a week, that are here for going to the lake or the mountains or wherever, if it's a spring break deal, the neighbors, that's a lot of people in a house for a neighborhood. That's all I'm gonna say. You might wanna think about possibly reducing that to 8 or 10, I don't know.
Or maybe 10 adults.
Well, it says
Not-
2 adults per room.
Yep.
But if you got 6 rooms,
I'm trying to think of houses in city limits that has 6 bedrooms.
We'd have to extend, I mean,
they might throw some up right
Yeah.
quick, or break up a basement, or,
Yeah.
Sleep in the bathroom, that's the bedroom.
it's,
I could move a washer and dryer and have 6.
Yeah.
You could put some walls up in that place and get 20.
that's just something to
Oh,
think
yeah.
about.
Yeah.
We don't have to deal with that tonight. I'm gonna try to do a little research on what maybe some other towns do, how they handle that. And I don't know, 10 kids and 2 adults might be worse than 12 college kids too.
Well, I'm taking it on chin tonight, aren't I?
Couldn't happen to a nicer girl.
Oh, there we go.
All right, any other discussion, amendments?
This is just the first reading, is that correct?
First reading. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of ordinance 2023-7?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we'll take it up again at the next meeting. All right, let's go to ordinance 2023-8. To annex 10 areas of right-of-way. Mr. Burton, do you want to explain it? I think I understand this, but I'll let you explain it.
Yes, sir, I can do this one. This is something that DOT brought to our attention. We've got pieces of rights of way inside the city limits that aren't contiguously annexed. So this just cleans up the map. It doesn't annex anyone's property. It annexes the right of way, because there's some places the property line does not come to the center of the highway. It comes to the edge of the right of way. So there's essentially kind of a no man's land in there that the state has, and this annexes that. There's several pieces. It does benefit law enforcement inside that right of way. You could run into a sticky situation with getting stopped in one lane. It's not in the limits, but the other lane is. So this just cleans up. If your property is not annexed, there's some map, I believe, on Area 3. Your property already has to be inside the city limits for that. You'll notice there's a gap there that's not red, because that property is not annexed in the city. That won't apply. So there will be a gap there.
Tell me, like, with that one right there, what's the green?
That is the James and Brown. That's the school, I believe. I think that's an additional parcel, because that, if I remember that correctly, that was in odd. That's a parcel map, and that's just an odd parcel.
Yes, sir. When they came to us
And we
2 or
annexed
3
that.
years ago,
Yeah.
they didn't realize that all their property wasn't in the city, and we annexed.
Yep.
Oh, that
That
corner,
was-
that
That
triangle.
corner. Yeah, it's a separate
Ah.
parcel, and it wasn't in the original
The county
annexation.
owns this
and
one.
they
Okay.
They didn't realize it, so
Yeah.
we brought it in.
So that anything in the light color is city, and then
Yes.
just for some reason that thing just,
Correct.
man, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
It was annexed later. Yep.
I'd like to make a motion on ordinance 2023-8 as discussed.
One second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? I don't think there is any, so good page number 2. Our next one is ordinance,
That's what,
2023-9.
Yes, sir.
An ordinance to establish emergency operations program and other matters related thereto. Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This kind of goes hand in hand with the emergency operations plan that we, y'all enacted by resolution. This creates an emergency management program. That doesn't create a new department. This will again fall under the city fire department. That's who all handled it. It lays out a few of the duties that the emergency manager will do in case that there is a disaster, either man-made or an act of God.
I'll make a motion, we accept ordinance 2023-9.
A second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just found a typo. I don't know if an amendment needs to be made, but on page 4, in B, under offenses, well, that offenses is spelled wrong, but in B, it shall likewise be unlawful for any person to wear,
Yeah.
I think is the, and then offenses as well. That doesn't need it.
We can make that. That's
Right.
just a,
Right.
that doesn't change the meaning of anything. It's just a missing letter, so.
I just was trying to figure out, what is ear? What is ear? Person to ear carrier display.
Any other questions in this one? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2023-9?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. All right. Let's go to ordinance 2023-10. This has to do with entering into an intergovernmental agreement with South Carolina Local Revenue Services, and I'm gonna refer to Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, the Municipal Association collects taxes on telecommunications. They collect taxes for us on insurance, sales brokers, and they also collect our online business renewals and then make that disbursement back to the city. So they're kind of a pass-through, if you will. These programs were each individual in the past. They've created a new name, and basically this just says that we agree with the new name. They call it the South Carolina Local Revenue Service, so the LRS. A lot of it does pertain to the business license, because if you remember, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had to re-adopt the statewide model business license code, because everybody had a different one. Legislature made us all have a uniform business license code. So it spells out what you have to do, what's applicable, and then just making sure that the city designates an appeal board for someone that has a business license issued, and that y'all have already done that. So a lot of places have not. This just makes sure that you have an appeal process for those business licenses.
Do I have a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? This is, again, it's a statewide program that most
That-
cities,
That we're already, it really won't change the way we do any business. I just got to redo the agreement with them because they changed the name and added the business license to it.
So there's no new business tax, there's no new higher rates, or,
No.
okay.
No.
any other questions? All those in favor of ordinance 2023-10? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Okay, we're through the ordinances. Let's go to discussion action items. And Mr. Burton, I'm gonna turn this over to you, and you can just go down the list.
Okay. So here, the first one on the list is authorization to purchase a zero-turn mower and bagger for the Public Works Department. This is off state contract through Dixon Tractor, and we will use the balance of what is left over the insurance claim, insurance reimbursement that we got from the burn trash truck. We've already bought a replacement truck. Y'all did that last time, and this will spend $16,796.89 out of that fund to replace this, to purchase this lawnmower and bagger.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I know Mr. Price needs a mower. I don't know that we need a $4,500 bagger. Actually, the mulch does the property more good than sweeping it off, so.
On the Main Street part though, when you're going down Main Street, it sucks that up. Like, they have a hard time of blowing it. Like, if it'd go out in the road or something, then they have no trouble. This way it'll pick it right up, and then it's in a bag, then you can use it for more.
So, how's the bag attached to a zero turn? Is it gonna be shooted and in behind it? So it's not gonna interfere with the operations of mowing up there around all the shrubs and stuff? 'Cause
I'll be honest, I'll claim ignorance on how Hustler, I have a
I mean,
Hustler
I
mower,
just-
but I don't have a bagger, so I don't know if it sits up a little bit higher. My question is, I am concerned that it, might make it top heavy if it sits up too high, but I'd say it'd have to sit down a little bit lower.
Yeah.
It'd probably add length to it. I don't know that it would add much height, but I could definitely find out.
Well, I have a Hustler mower with a bagger,
Okay.
and it depends on the bagger, but because you can get different baggers that they'll put on there, and we get ours from Dixon as well. But yeah, on that one side, it sticks out a little further. Like the side where you
Yeah.
have the plastic
discharge,
chute.
yeah.
You might get rid of the chute so you can just go right up, you don't do it, but with this, you're gonna have it. So you just have to get creative and just cut it with that side. But it puts it
Yeah.
right there, plenty of view, generally to see. I don't know exactly how this one will fit on that Super Z, but I'm sure it's made so you can see it. Hustler does, I mean, that's the mower to get, a Hustler.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I just-
Now, we're buying two,
One, at one size and then a smaller size for the rec department.
okay,
There'll be two different actions.
and the second one, we're not buying a backer for.
Correct, no backer.
What have they been doing with the leaves, Brian, on Main Street? So this, my understanding, I help pick the leaves.
They can pick the leaves up. They've been blowing them and then sucking them up with the vacuum truck.
It kind of speeded up a little bit.
Probably they give a bigger one because they don't wanna have to dump it a bunch. But ours, on a much smaller mower, $1,500, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So on this, but this is the biggest Hustler makes,
Yeah.
so they're gonna probably have, I know, it's crazy, but
Yeah.
it's what it costs.
All right, does someone wanna make a motion on this, or is there any other discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Second,
I'll see.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? It's carried. Who moves?
Who seconded that?
Okay, the second item is again, a little bit smaller, mower for recreation. And this was approved in the FY '23 budget. This is just to purchase, the action to purchase the mower.
I think we actually approved
Yeah, we
both of
did,
them,
yeah.
so.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
that was for both of them or not, so,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't catch that.
All right, next item, comprehensive plan. Mr. Burton and Ms. C, what we got?
I'll let Ms. Myers give you the update on the comp plan. Last time she'd mentioned that you'll need to establish a steering committee and focus groups. I think she's laid out an example or two there, and I'll let her take it away from there.
Yes, sir, thank you. Yes, at the last meeting, y'all asked to defer until the, committee night. However, it's now, a council night. In the break, we did go back to planning commission, and planning commission did, vote in which committees they wanted to be, so you'll have an updated list, and it'll show that the planning commission has already, appointed who will be at certain focus groups, and the chair will be on the steering committee. The only thing I have added from the last time to tonight is there were some questions on the comp plan and the code, so I did copy the state code regarding comprehensive plans, and you have that as well, just for more information about what this comprehensive plan is and what the requirements, by the state are.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion on this one?
Oh, is this, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. I thought we were just getting an update.
Well, it says discussion and or action items to include vote or action on all those items.
What we would like is for you to establish the steering committee and the focus groups, and if you already know that you want to serve on one of these focus groups, I would appreciate knowing who that's going to be, so we can get this process started, because right now we're in a holding pattern.
I'm looking at the calendar here, I think, we're on the spring, we just
Correct.
kicked off, is it yesterday officially spring?
Officially, however, we haven't kicked this off yet.
Yeah, yes, so you're needing, just support from the majority.
I'm good with the way you've got it written, honestly.
Yeah, me too. Time to.
Would somebody like to make a motion
I'll make a motion.
Accept it.
to accept it, move forward?
I'll second.
Yep. Discussion, a little more discussion?
Well, I got a motion, did I have a second?
I
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Okay, so now we can discuss it.
So this, I'm not clear on the steering committee. How does this, who's on the steering committee and how does this work?
The draft that I provided was those that are listed, the mayor, the administrator, our planning commission chair, a board member from Main Street, Walhalla, 2 citizens, and myself. So we would need to know eventually who those 2 citizens would be and the Walhalla, our Main Street Walhalla board member would be. But they would be the overseeing committee of all these different focus groups and the process in general. They would also be very involved in, so if you're looking at the timeline, they would be very involved in getting that initial public feedback and helping to take those goals, objectives, future wants and needs from the community and helping to formulate that vision that's going to be the community vision for the whole process and taking that back to the public and making sure that we are on the right path, and that is going to be what guides each of these focus groups and each of our elements. Also, just making sure that focus groups are doing what they are supposed to be doing. If not, then maybe they go to the focus group and say, hey, we need to get back on track. Accountability.
Okay, and God forbid anybody changes on the steering committee and the focus groups, what happens?
Then they change.
Okay, so,
Y'all would just
I-
reappoint, yeah,
yes.
someone,
Okay.
yep.
I just need an initial. If
It's gotta start somewhere.
Correct. If you
Yeah.
rotate off, if we need to amend, that's fine.
okay.
I think, is this still open for discussion? I know that, I think you have in parentheses here, draft to be determined by the mayor and council. In this case, I know I wanna be mindful of the quorum, right? If you have a steering committee, and if you have all the council members, and all of them can't make it, you want that piece of accountability and also to help steer it, right? Can we, what's the max that we can add council members? 2? The mayor and
They can all be here, you just have to, if you have a focus group meeting and there's gonna be council people there, you just have to announce it ahead of time. Would that be correct?
And provide an agenda.
Yes.
And we will do that regardless, because these are,
Right.
these will be open, so just because they're not listed as a focus group, for example, focus group number 1, population, economic development, land use. If members of the real estate community or local developers or local, downtown business owners want to come to that one, I'm not gonna tell them they can't come, it's open, that's what we want, we
It's
want
an
these
open
others
meeting.
to
Of course,
come.
yeah, I was just specifically looking at the steering committee.
Same thing, they will be open public meetings, they,
Mm-hmm.
just like we do for every other committee with the city.
And we'll do an agenda and announce it,
24
just like
hours in
anything
advance.
else.
Mhm.
Okay, because I know there's not a section here to allow a council member, so I would like to hear my colleagues here if we can add council members there. I would like to be included in the steering committee. But I would defer to my council members too, if they're interested. I don't know. Is that appropriate?
What's the number?
Each council person is on the focus group, and that will
Oh,
be
yeah,
the.
that's understandable.
Yeah, that'll be the boots on the ground. They'll be the ones really interacting. The steering committee, like Ms. Myers said, will kind of just take everything from the focus groups and get it coordinated, get it together, take the public comment, and then turn that over to council, for approval, for, discussion.
I mean, if I, so I understand it and kind of clarify where you're going, is the steering committee basically works off of the focus group. They work off of the information that's fed to them.
It will,
It'll be a
It's gonna
two-way,
work,
yeah,
yes.
two-way
But-
conversation, two-way
But
work.
the public comment, contacts is the focus group.
yes.
And ultimately, it all comes back to council
Mhm.
for anything that you put in place.
Yes,
Yes.
it will go
See, so
to
it's-
planning commission and then to full council.
Whatever
So
the
that-
focus groups come up with.
Mhm.
I think 7 people on a steering committee is enough. You start adding more people, it makes it harder to get you know,
So
to
if we
the end
have
of the
one
meeting.
more council, it's gonna make it difficult.
I would think 7 is probably a good number to cap it at, because the more numbers you have in a group, the harder it is to come to a consensus and
Get
decision.
everybody there.
And, right. And ultimately, it does come back to council, so.
You know, if you're interested, to me, you look at this and you're like, wow, you wanna do it? You know, I don't wanna do it. I'm thinking if she wants to do it, let's put her on doing it because she has interest in doing it. She's motivated.
Well, that's why we're discussing about it, to see if it's gonna make any difference. I mean, I don't know if there was gonna be a
Well,
jump
the-
like council.
The gist of it, just in my thinking, is I personally want to attend the focus group meetings. That's where, like you said, the boots on the ground and the decisions, the suggestions are actually going to be made. And then, if the steering committee has a meeting on this, we'll announce it, everybody's willing to come. That's not a problem. That's
Right.
not a problem at all.
This is technically like a resolution, it's not really a consent, right?
That,
Or
exactly.
we could come back and, if something doesn't work, we could just get
It
something
can be
in,
changed at any time, would that be correct?
well, we can get the framework now, cause you need it.
Yeah, we're just trying to get it
Yeah.
started,
Yeah, yeah.
is the
And
the deal
again,
right now.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're welcome to change who's on this thing, but with the 7 members, if you add 8, you could potentially have a tie vote, so you do need an odd number.
So there's voting that's gonna happen in the steering committee?
For the vision, the mission,
Well-
you can bring that together, and then the steering committee will vote on that and bring that to council.
Not a legally
I
binding
just-
vote.
No,
I've been in
it's
steering
not.
committees before in other capacities, so I understand and well knowledgeable of that. There has been a shift in my life, and I do wanna be more involved, that I can be there to support, so that's why I'm trying to get consensus here, if I can be part of the steering committee, if another council member wanted to be part of it. That's just a discussion, so.
The two
That's
citizens.
gonna cause then a problem if I wanna be part of it?
I
can
don't
be
think
part of
so.
it?
I don't know. I don't think you being on it's a problem. I just either, you probably need to add 2 more to keep it an odd number of people on the steering
But it's
committee.
not an official vote, right?
It's not
But
an
you
official
could-
vote, but you don't wanna end up having a bunch of tie votes
What
and
you-
like you couldn't agree
Could she
on what
not
the
be
mission.
one of the 2 citizens?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Yep.
You're not gonna find anyone that sounds like it's got more interest in it than her.
Exactly.
So, why,
Well,
if we just allowed you to be one of the 2 citizens on the steering committee, there you are.
We don't have to add 2 members to the body.
Right.
I'm sure,
You
but
don't have
I,
to-
yeah, I understand, but I just kinda, I'm just the number, the voting part that was just mentioned today, and that's new to me. I didn't realize there was gonna be a voting in the steering committee of what direction the vision.
Well, we just got to vote to move forward with the plan.
But it's not like an official form of vote, right? Cause it's not a governing body
Correct.
who's voting.
Oh, I'm talking about voting tonight to move
Oh,
forward
yeah, yeah, I was talking about the
with
steering
this.
committee.
Yes.
No,
Wow.
it would not be a legally binding vote, but just to keep the numbers odd, so you're not having, so it, easier to build consensus, so, and all 8 may agree. But if you was to poll the steering committee and half wanted to say one word and half wanted to say the other, you'd eventually just be at an impasse. I've been involved with that too, but we'll do whatever, and I'm willing to remove myself, from that to open that up. I would just recommend an odd number. But I don't
Right.
think if Ms. Melendez wants to be on, that's
That's not a problem.
not a problem at all.
Yeah,
Definitely
let's,
not.
can we
Just leave it
agree
like it
to-
is
and
and
put her
put
on
her
there.
as a citizen.
and pick one other citizen?
Yeah.
Well, that-
That's up to
We'll
y'all.
appoint her and pick one other
Is
citizen.
everybody, is that agreeable with
Yes, sir.
everyone?
To me, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
You have been officially
Yeah, I don't think it's a good
nominated.
idea for you to remove
Yeah,
yourself.
I just.
I mean, you're
just
hired to be
Yeah.
the city manager, yeah. I just think like, I don't wanna take away from a citizen who could be a part of this too, cause I'm already thinking like, do we have
It'd be
our
open to
senior
the
citizen?
public.
Yeah, I know, and it has to go through all that, but I just, okay, well,
All right, do we need to have a
That
vote
was
to
interesting.
adopt this plan? Is that what
Please.
we need?
yes, sir.
Do I have a motion
I'll
for
make a
that?
motion.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
With the amended, with her on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, I don't think there is any. Alright. Mr. Burton, the next one's committee and Mayor Pro Tem, the possible changes on.
Thank you. Just, I threw this chart together, how it's structured current, and one of probably 1,000 different ways it could be structured. This by no means is really a recommendation or how it should, has to be. It's just a form of it. So y'all could, I know there's discussion about the way our committees and everything is. You can leave it the same, you can make some amendments. The only staff recommendation as far as a committee change is I would like the General Government / Finance Committee to be committee of the whole, be the entire council. That's a recommendation. And then another recommendation, listening to y'all, we'll clean up our ordinance about the Mayor Pro Tem will be elected at the first meeting of every calendar year. That way it's not, okay, is it this year, was it last year? We just know for every January, we'll elect a new Mayor Pro Tem. The way it says now, at the beginning of a new council, okay, you could look at new different ways. So I think this just cleans it up and says every year you'll elect a Mayor Pro Tem. And the reports would be sent to the city administrator, and I could send them out like I do already to all the committee chairs, and the chair give the report, or the administrator could give the report. That would probably save some time on reading that stuff. Department heads would be at the meeting to ask any questions if y'all have any at that time. So that's what I have. But again, the committee structure is entirely up to council. Y'all have that flexibility to do whatever you want to do.
We talked
And I'm sorry, and to meet as needed, instead of meeting every month, the committees would meet as needed. I meant to add that.
Where do you have that?
On the
Brandon?
second page below figure 2, it says committees meet as needed throughout the year.
I don't have this.
Yeah, I don't have that
Believe
either.
it says once a quarter. Yeah, yeah, we would redo all that.
I'm good with that. And this ordinance isn't saying how our committees have to be structured, it's saying it's up to us to structure them.
Right, and under state law, you have, that's,
body.
yeah, the body of government has what
It's
can
on
structure.
It's on there. Let me get mine, because I can get it. Here, I'll get mine up, and then I'll be able to get it.
Yes, this does not change the form of government at all. No.
And are we,
But it changes
I guess it's up to us,
something.
we're gonna stay the same for this calendar year, and we decide that. For this
It would, this wouldn't go into effect to July 1.
calendar.
It'd be whenever y'all set.
Okay.
If you even
Okay.
made a change.
So we could change it as of next month.
You
for
could,
that
yeah.
matter.
You
We
could.
don't wanna do, it doesn't really matter to me.
Okay.
We just need direct, I just, some of y'all had asked about this, I put it together, and we just need direction on how to proceed.
I like the government part with all of us is on the government. I think that we should, I like the committees how they are now, as far as everybody's at. I like the one meeting part. I think that's, and a lot of the department heads I've talked to, it takes a lot of time, it's hard for them to plan stuff, and so, I like that, so.
I would say maybe we just keep what we got for this calendar year, to adopt this, and, January 1 next year. we
Well,
can
I
change it.
brought that same comment up, and it was a bad idea, because we're gonna throw something on a new council.
We need to do it
I
now.
don't- I
But
think-
right now, it's just discussion, I mean,
Yeah,
we're not
it's just
voting,
me.
Yeah,
I
well-
don't think.
No, it's just discussion,
So-
yeah.
Well,
we gotta put it on the agenda
if you,
No, you can vote on it tonight. You just need to
if you
give us
changed it
direction on
effective
what.
next year, they would never know the difference.
Yeah.
That's right,
You can
start
never say
fresh,
that, 'cause
you
we're
know,
having
the new
trouble.
rules.
Whoever was there,
Right.
they wouldn't know what they missed.
But that means this year's budget cycle, the finance committee will still just be
I thought I did see
the
this
three
one.
people, but, I mean, it's
have
gone okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna have
I
rooftops, I'm not
think-
really worried about that.
This is it.
That's just my thing, 'cause it might be kinda weird
Well,
changing
that's
it.
why I
But
wanted
this
to
is
do
not,
it. to begin with.
it's not an
No, no.
ordinance, so it's not, it's
It's
just.
not me.
I like the idea of all of us being on the finance committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's.
I do too.
Well, we can change that anytime, really, couldn't we?
Could
You
change
can
that
change
and
that,
leave
just change,
everything
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm good with that.
And
Would
we're-
would we have to do that by ordinance?
Yes.
So if we voted to go forward with any of this, you'd have to draw up an ordinance and get it.
Correct. Correct.
Supersedes it.
Yeah, I just would like direction on whether I need to round file this or keep working on it, honestly. So we just need direction.
So as far as the committee meetings, what you're proposing or your thought on that is as needed?
Correct, yes, that's listed up there.
Yeah,
we can
I'm
just do as
sorry,
needed.
I don't have the right thing, so I'm keeping it here. So that's as needed. All of us on all of general government or
Yeah, on the
finance committee,
yeah,
all of us
administration
are
and
on that.
finance, everyone would be on that. Yes.
Okay,
And
and then we're gonna maintain, as right now, the same
correct.
things we're on until we have,
I think that's sort of been the
A
discussion.
new
We'd have
council.
to decide that. The ordinance doesn't dictate that. We would just pass this and then we can also say. what we're
Y'all
gonna
would
do with
decide
committees.
that these are the committees, these are what the committees consist of, these are how the committees are formed, and
But really,
these are when the committees meet.
really,
Okay.
we could've, trying to look at this graph you drew here, but, could we not adopt this new platform and still kinda lay it out to where everybody's, the ones that wanna stay where they're at, still on that committee?
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
But-
endless ways of.
I mean, I think that's
of
gonna
doing
get
this.
confusion if we pass an ordinance to change this and then right in the same ordinance, we're gonna change it again effective January 1. I mean, I'd feel better if we wanna do that, to go ahead and pass the whole thing now,
Keep our assignments,
but,
and except for the finance.
and then figure out,
Yeah.
you know, like if David still wants to be on the police committee and stuff, make this appointment work for him and vice versa for anybody else.
Well, if that's the case, then I would like to see the whole ordinance with like the red markings and what we're gonna change and everything.
That's right.
We don't have that.
I know that. That's why
We gotta get first reading.
I would like to see, I know that's probably.
No, I just want y'all to tell, if that's
Is-
what you want, or, you know,
How do
to
y'all
be
feel
blunt, do I
about
need to
that?
waste my time with it more, or go move on to something else?
yeah, I think
'Cause
we're seeing it the same way.
Yeah.
I just want to see it wrote
Here's-
Yeah, let's just see it written out and then we can say, yeah, that's what I wanted, or no, I didn't want it that
Well,
way.
he
what
needs
we want to do-
direction, current and proposed, right? You need direction.
I need direction on what you want
This is
the
current.
changes to look
This is
like,
what's
so I
being
can bring it to a
proposed.
first reading.
Everybody's on the finance committee. I voted, I'd like to stay where I'm at, so everybody, you keep it the same as it is.
Yeah, just change the
So
format.
you wanna keep current, finance, general
Well,
government,
it ain't gonna
police,
stay the
fire.
same as it is, cause you got 3 people on finance and government that's,
But
that's,
you're still, you can get to that committee, but you're still the same people down here.
All the other committees would be
Yeah,
the same.
Right.
So Keith, right now you chair the Finance General Government Committee. And so the mayor would be taking that,
Mhm.
but you are also on Community Development.
yes,
So you would chair Community Development.
I understand that, yeah.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's how you'd look at it. Okay.
Well, right now, there's 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it can complement our body of government, is that right?
Yeah.
The proposed one is public safety is gonna be one committee, fire and police. the
No,
proposed.
I think everyone's gravitated towards, the only committee that will be changing is the general government
General
finance.
government.
That will be everybody. There'll still be a separate police, a separate fire, a separate rec, a separate public works, a separate utility, and a separate community development.
I think you're saying may as well do it effective now.
The only committee, ultimately, the only committee you're changing is the
finance.
makeup of the finance and administration. You're taking that from 3 to 7.
Right.
Everything else remains the same.
And that would be the only one that the mayor votes in?
Correct.
Okay.
Except,
Correct.
as far as committee.
Just committee,
As
just the
committee,
committee.
yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
That's
And right here, it says mayor is finance and admin chair.
I
Whoever's
think,
the-
I think that was just proposed, that's just scrapped. No one wants that right there.
No, I think that is, right?
No,
No?
that's just an,
So
just an
the-
iteration, so that would be,
Oh, the.
that was just a generic proposal, that doesn't
Idea.
not have to be any way it is.
I guess so, just to brush it up, can we just say the finance and admin would be the council form of government?
You're already council form, it would just be the committee as a whole, it would be an entire 7 members of council would serve on the
Yeah.
finance, general government finance committee.
It says we do business.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Cause you, you do business as a council, not as committee. Official business.
Right, I just
Yeah.
noticed just the one specific, or two of them, okay.
So can you just draw it up and then we can have it in our hands and look at it? Does that sound fair enough?
I think I understand what you want, I just like direction, if you want me to bring it next council meeting as an ordinance, or do you wanna work on it some more?
I would say, bring it as an ordinance
Okay,
on the way we're operating now.
Could you repeat back what you got on there, what we're looking, so make sure everybody's on the same page?
I believe the motion would be to change the General Government Finance Committee to be everyone on council, leave the remaining committees alone as they currently are. Committees would only meet as needed throughout the year. Mayor Pro Tem would be elected first of every calendar year. And then, this probably doesn't need to be in the ordinance, but it's just department heads send their monthly report to the administrator, and the administrator distributes it to the committee chair, and it'll be up to y'all. Either y'all wanna read the committee report, or the administrator read it. That's just some internal housekeeping things.
I don't
But-
even know why you would necessarily need to read it.
And that was just,
If everybody gets the reports,
and we'll,
I don't know,
we'll
whatever.
get them, to you in ample
We
time,
can
so
do
if you
that.
have a question, you can ask.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And effective, when are we gonna?
Well, we gotta
pass
get the
We'll
ordinance
have to
written
do it.
and then we gotta pass it.
it? Well,
Alright,
I'll make that as a motion
okay,
to give Brandon the guidance on that.
second.
Yep.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright, one question I would have, Brandon, in the meantime, are we still gonna have committee meetings, I would assume?
It'd be up to y'all. I would say probably so,
Okay,
just,
what we could do, think about this, we could actually have a regular meeting on committee night and do first reading on this if y'all would like. And then vote on
Get
it on
it done.
both times and get it over with.
Yeah, so we only have one committee meeting and then we're done.
That's right. Okay, alright,
You need to put anything in there, in the ordinance as far as like a special call meeting, so like if something happens with the police department, I need to call a special meeting. There's nothing needs to be in the ordinance on that.
there already is, and that'll be included, that, you just have to give proper notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who calls?
The department.
Only the chairman or any two?
The chairman or the administrator can recommend to call one, and then the chairman of that committee could call the meeting, and then I would just announce it.
Usually, just to be respectful in the past when we called one, so if I wasn't the chairman, I thought we needed to, I'd call the chairman and, so we talk about it, and yeah, we'd all, everybody on that committee knew that there was gonna be a meeting. And we talked to the administrator, and he made make sure that the press knew and set up a meeting time.
Okay, so, but you could call the meeting too.
I can recommend it, I can't call it.
Well,
So one of
can
y'all-
other members of that committee call it? Like say I'm incapacitated. All my kids, I'm incapacitated.
I
They're
believe
trying to
so.
get an
I believe
Airbnb
anyone on
and
the-
we couldn't. Had to leave
Anyone on
town.
the committee can.
Okay.
I think 2 members, but I'm not sure. You can look that up. We'll figure it out. All right,
That'd be worth having, I just think that'd be
Yeah.
worth having.
Yeah.
It's already, that's already addressed in the
Okay.
ordinance, and I don't
I think it is too.
remember it offhand, but I can find it.
All right, let's move to the recreation update on, survey and additional sports information. Mr. Burton,
This is, in reference to the survey that y'all asked, I believe back in January, to poll, some folks about different types of sports inside the city that were for the city to offer. This first chart here, goes back to 2019 and shows the type of sports and the number that we offer. Some of them are, just to make the chart a little bit more concise, they're combined. We're starting to get back to our pre-COVID numbers. We're slowly getting there. It's taken a while. The second chart is how our staffing is. We currently have 4 full-time people, a director, an assistant, and 2 maintenance workers. Seneca has 2 part-time staff and 8 full-time staffers. Clemson has 6 and 6. Westminster has 6 on contract, 4 part-time and 2 full-time. And I believe they're getting ready to hire a 3rd full-time for maintenance, or, to do heavy maintenance. So that's kind of how our neighbors are staffed. Rec fees, for the city right now, it's $70 outside the city and $30 inside the city. I should have included this on here, but the average cost of a uniform is $25. So really our fee, we're only getting $5 out of that. I'm going to recommend, on the 8th, that we stagger our fees, that we have a certain fee for basketball, a certain fee for baseball, a certain fee for whatever other sport we decide to offer. That way, it's a little bit more cumbersome on sign up, but we can adjust those costs to make sure it actually covers that sport.
Pete, could you find out for us how our fees compare with the other cities?
I do know, I think our outside fee is slightly higher than the others, but they have volume, a little bit higher volume of participants than we do.
And that's $70 per child.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
you've got 3 kids wanting to play, that's
Yeah.
pretty steep.
Yeah.
for-
Yeah.
For 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
Is there anything in place where, say, a parent comes and says, you know, I'd like my kid to do this, but I'm having a hard time paying this? Is there any kind of a fund?
I believe the rec club would step in and help. That'd probably be a question I could ask John, but I believe I've heard in the past that the rec club would, the rec association would step in and cover a child that just couldn't afford it if they lived inside the city. What they did outside, I'm not sure, but for a city resident.
Okay.
Would you also look into sponsorship, how that has been done in the past, and if we're up to that to be growing?
Yeah.
Like again, cause that could probably bring some money in, but also just creating that blind, but
Yeah.
just wanna know that.
Would there be
So I'm thinking-
possibility, if you got a family of, say, 3, you pay, say you got 3 kids gonna play, that's $210. It's a way to, if you're outside the city, or 90 inside, to a fee for one, say like for $30, and if you have another one, still you gotta cover the uniforms,
Mhm.
cost and stuff. But, I mean,
You couldn't cut it much though.
not
if
on, not on the,
Not if your
not on the inside.
uniforms are $25.
but outside the city,
We can look at that, but my immediate reaction is that it costs the same per child. So if you're wanting to look at maybe a lower rate for the third and fourth child of a family, we could definitely take a look at that.
And just see to help those folks out. You might pick up a few more that,
We might.
you know, are outside the city that can't afford for that many to play.
You can do
Well,
one
that's
thing.
the idea of a scholarship, that's why I like that idea. If you have
That right
fun.
there's the problem.
Exactly.
We gotta figure out a way to pay for some more employees.
Yeah.
So let it be, I think there's plenty of people in town that if they knew that there was a fund like this that they could give to, would give money so kids that qualified for it could play. I don't think that'd be a problem.
Yeah,
And if we just establish that, that way we're not
yeah.
taking this poor man's money to help that poor kid out over there.
Mhm.
And like you said, especially if we're gonna look at offering other sports now, you know, we've got to
We've
get
got to add
Gotta
to
have
staff.
more
staffing.
And that's something we'll discuss on the 8th. We're gonna have to take a serious look at our fees and the growth of our personnel, because we're gonna have to, we'll be fine for a couple of years, but eventually the bank account will run out rather quickly and we'll be in trouble.
The, Sarah A. mentioned the sponsorships. I think there's lots of businesses would be willing to sponsor if they were approached.
And that was a recommendation that I've also heard from y'all, is to reinvigorate the recreation commission, and get that back the advisory board, get that back going, and that would be a means for folks to donate to, and they could cover those costs or whatever.
This is just information. There's nothing we need to vote on here tonight.
Well, and I can go through the survey results. I think it already sent it out at the last meeting. If y'all got questions, we did have 291. We had almost 300 respondents. So I thought that was pretty good for an online survey. Overwhelmingly, you know, everybody thought we needed more opportunities. 65% responded they wanted both. They're both interested in volleyball and football.
Flag football.
Yeah, flag football and volleyball. And then if they had to rank, if they had to pick between flag football and volleyball, volleyball was their first choice. 31.6% said flag football, and 11.3% were indifferent. Didn't matter either. They could go either way. So that's, pretty much not quite half down the middle. It could go either way. So, and obviously, 41.6% wanted more opportunities. 40.9% thought we needed we needed more facilities, and 17.5% thought we needed more staffing. Flipping on over, flag football. This is kind of mirrored about the numbers that Seneca had seen. 8 and under, you'd have 5 teams, 10 teams, 10 U, 12 U's 4, 14 U's 2. You'd have 16 teams altogether. I believe 166 players. Flag football does require high school officials per the league rules, so that's just an additional cost. We estimated around $20,000 initially to get flag football started. Those costs probably would taper off in years 2 and 3, just because you could reuse some of the equipment. Some of it you'd have to purchase every year, but some of it you would not. And then our revenue based on 50% being inside the city and 50% being outside the city. That was just looking at the respondent to the survey. I just said, well, half of the players are going to be inside and half are going to be outside. So just
Does volleyball require officials? Also now?
not high school
Okay.
officials. Just for the flag football league, you have to have high school officials. Volleyball would be 9 players, 6 and 6. Total of 8 teams, around 72 players, and then the cost are around $14,000 for the first year. That dropped to a little under 12 for years 2 and 3, and then you're looking right around $4,000 in revenue. Again, that's a 50-50 model inside and outside participants. I'm gonna say this on the cost, a little caveat, I'm not sure what the exact cost would be in year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's gonna eventually be some replacement costs, but up front, I do feel comfortable with our upfront numbers, that it'll be 20 and 14 and some change to start the programs. And that does include the cost of part-time employees to help run this program. And some officials as well. I guess I would just like some direction on if I need to include this in the fiscal year 2024 budget. Y'all like to see expanding these programs, so I'd just like to know if we want to add that.
I would.
I
Okay.
think so, yes, sir.
Go back, the rest of you guys, do y'all think so?
Look at it.
Volleyball is a big deal. I heard a lot about volleyball, so a lot of people want it. So
We'll try it.
that's-
I,
Gotta get more staff.
I don't know how we expand when we don't have money to do what we're doing. I think do what we're doing well, and when we have money for it, then do it, but I don't think we have money.
You need a vote?
I would like one, just, so I can add it to the budget package. Just make sure
And
we've
then
got
if we-
consistent.
If we have to eliminate one or the other, it looks like volleyball is by far the,
Most popular.
yeah.
Yeah. I would just, do y'all want me to include this in the budget workup?
But that upfront figure you're looking at, $34,000 and change, $35,000
For both.
is you're evaluating for personnel to run it.
Yeah, that includes the part-timers to help assist the program, the equipment, the officials, yes.
Would somebody like to make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we,
Second. Okay. Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
this is for the 24,
Fiscal year 2024, so it'll be after July.
And this doesn't mean necessarily we're gonna do it.
Correct.
But you're gonna
It's
try
just-
to
Look at it.
Yep.
figure out a way to put it in the budget.
Yep, I'm just gonna put it in the budget, so, yep.
All right, all those in favor?
I just want everybody to know
Yes, sir.
that I'm gonna raise my hand to vote for this so I can see it in the budget. If
That's
it
my
don't
point.
fit, then
right.
I'm gonna be against it.
Yeah, if we can't figure out how to do it.
Yes.
That,
Yeah.
that's what, we'll
That's right.
take it up at that time.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, let's go to the next item, which is codification update. Everyone has the list of these. Mr. Burton, you and I discussed this just a little bit. If you want to kind of fill us in, and these are items that need to be clarified.
To make congruent with state law, yes. During the codification process, state law requires that every jurisdiction codify their ordinances. So, and I've got the book here, that's similar to what it'll look like, or what it will look like. We scanned all of our ordinances from, I say 1855, but I believe early 1900s. Whenever we started keeping ordinances, that went to a group of attorneys. They researched our ordinances, state law ordinances, or state laws, and came up with some changes that needed to be made. Some of it was just language, grammar, things of that nature. Some that they struck because they were illegal. They were just things that were on our ordinance books that were, had been stricken by state law years later. So it really cleaned up that. Most of it's some definitions.
I guess my point would be, we really don't have a choice on this, we pretty much, if it's some of,
There was not really any, I guess some of the changes I did make or I did recommend was, we don't have an election commission anymore. The county handles our elections. However, if y'all wanted to retake the elections over, you know, have to enact an ordinance. We didn't have, there was some commission that I think a Board of Health and Safety. That was from the 20s and 30s. We don't have that, so there's a lot of things. There was some language in there that called, before the city clerk term, it was the recorder/mayor, that the recorder could issue fines and stuff. And this was all, a lot of this language was get the date right, I think 76, when the Home Rule and Act, I forget what act that was, but a lot of this stuff just cleans up stuff before Home Rule and makes it congruent with state law.
did the municipal association do this? Who actually did
No,
this?
General Code did this. This was the firm that we contracted with.
Okay.
There's several different firms that do
That's all they do.
codification. That's all they do. And they'll index, it does change the way that we'll do our ordinances. Instead of appealing and amending ordinances, we'll still adopt stuff by ordinance, but we'll have to, in the language of the ordinance, it'll be notably different. We appeal and amend chapter so-and-so, section so-and-so. It's a little bit more work on us, to make sure everything, meshes with here, but this is what it'll look like. There'll be an online version that you can search, and you'll pull up the actual code. But the ordinance, the actual ordinance itself will be on there too, if you wanna read that. All the code references that ordinance.
Okay, so before we discuss, we'll need a motion in a second.
Yeah, just because I'll bring this in form of an ordinance at the next meeting. I just want to make sure y'all are good with this, because this will have to go by ordinance. You have to adopt these changes and the codification by ordinance. So
these are all the ordinance that have been
changed.
changed and then like
Yes.
everything here by a
Yes.
third party who
Correct.
we hired, right?
Correct.
This will make us legal on
On
some
some
of the
stuff.
ordinances.
Yeah.
So you're gonna write an ordinance that incorporates this.
Yes.
Then we'll
Yes.
vote on that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I just, for full disclosure here, with this stack of everything we had, I did not get to, this is
Oh.
very, very important.
Yeah.
And I did not get to read every
I'm
last
hurt because we
thing
found
in
an
that.
error that
I
we didn't
am
find.
sorry.
So
Yeah, I have found no errors in that because I haven't read it. And, so I can't, I can vote to say, make an ordinance. Do I believe that it's gonna be fine? Yes, but I couldn't vote on it as an
Yeah,
ordinance.
this will be just voting to move it forward. That's
Move
all.
it to you to make an ordinance, I'm good for that.
All right, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll
Motion,
second it.
second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
When the ordinance comes, then we'll go through it.
Can I read this
there-
right here?
there'll be a,
What section?
This is the way it used to be. That's kind of, I didn't know this. I kind of abusing a little bit, but it says on the police department, chapter 67, down here they got it marked out. So then this is kind of how old it is. The chief of police and all policemen of the department shall be appointed by the council and shall hold office for a period of time as is provided by the town council, and shall receive such compensation for performance of their duties as the council may from time to time designate. So that's a long time ago. That's a long time ago.
there, also in here, just speaking to that, there's a lot of things in here.
Council right there.
We're referred to as a city now. A lot of the ordinances says town, so they clean that up as well.
Right.
To try to make everything, everything match.
Did we vote?
We did.
Yes, we did.
All right, we
You
got
did.
that done.
You did.
I'm running out of gas here. All right, authorization purchase of police vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
This, we've had several accidents in the, citywide. I'm not gonna pick on one department. We've had several accidents citywide. This happens to be one of them that was damaged beyond repair. It was a Tahoe that was, involved in a pursuit the other day, and we'll get some insurance money back, and we need to replace that. Chief Rice has given his pursuit Durango up because there's not any more on the market to find. This vehicle here is a F-150. It's similar to the one that we already have in the fleet, and that'll be the chief's, vehicle.
Can we go into, these, I commend these officers for what they did as long as, it was a violent,
Yeah.
could you go into a little bit, can we go into that?
Yeah, they were chasing, an individual that was suspected of committing, a violent crime. And, it's been on the news, but that's all I'll say about that. And they were in a legitimate pursuit. They were doing their job.
That's right.
And chased the individual for several miles, longer than I realized. And ultimately, when you throw other traffic out in the mix, at no fault of their own, stuff happens. And they were unable to get stopped quick enough, one behind the other. But the first officer did encounter a vehicle that bowed up and stopped in front of him, was able to get stopped, but just the mechanics of everything. The other one, and I commend him because he tried not to make the accident worse. He took one for the team and hit the guardrail. So just to keep from tearing up another vehicle or possibly shooting out in the other lane of traffic. So they did exhibit some defensive driving.
The officers, they take a lot of pride in their cars. I've actually talked, whenever they're in scenes, a life is more important than a car. We can always replace a car, but they truly care about the cars that the cities give them, or that gives them to work with, and the officers were,
Yeah.
visibly upset.
Oh,
that they had tore that car up. So, but just wanted to let y'all know that. So.
Alright,
I can work too.
we need to have a motion on this where we can discuss it.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
second. Now it's open for discussion.
This isn't on the agenda, but I would just like to make y'all aware of it. Because the fleet, we're having some issues, and Chief Rice has found some used vehicles. They're Ford Tauruses, they're upfitted. I believe we can, I don't see a price on here. I just wanted to make y'all aware of this. We'll probably need to, we can't vote on it tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, but I just want to make y'all aware. I'm probably going to ask for some more capital improvement. We've got some vehicles we can sell. We can put that into the fund, and then we can pull these used vehicles. They're already outfitted. They've got lights on them. They come from the federal government, and then we can make that happen. So, because we've got some that's, we just need to do some fleet rearranging.
I listed on the first page is what we currently have in our fleet. The ones that are in red or blue are either wrecked or are already unusable. Unfortunately, of those, we're trying to figure out a replacement plan. Been working on that. The F-150 that Mr. Burton has talked about tonight. I would like to have another Durango to go and carry on with what we've been doing in our fleet where we work good. I was told that there were about 300 of those ordered on state contract last September. And Dodge accepted the order initially, but they give them no building, and they're still holding. So if we order today, we may have it in 10 or 12 months, maybe. I checked on the Ford contract, the Ford dealer, says no, there are no Explorers available, which will be a comparable SUV. There are no Tahoes. I found one Durango, which was about $17,000 over state contract that's on the ground. Dealer has bought that, even though it's new, they essentially bought it, titled it, and are trying to resell it with the market. So the truck that's in there is very similar to the truck that we already have. Just it's almost the same car, almost identical, just a little, about 45, I think that's a little negotiable. I think we can get those for about 3 of them for 45,000 total. And then we have to put a little bit of money in them to get them finished out, for city maintenance.
That would be, let me see if I understand what we're doing. This has nothing to do with the recommendation to buy the truck.
No, this is separate.
Okay. So would we need to vote on these 3 vehicles as well tonight, or?
Well,
would we need
there
to-
wasn't in the agenda, so I would probably defer that we vote on it at next time.
The only question would be, are they gonna be there 2 weeks from now?
I couldn't say. I know that West Union recently purchased one. They intended to get something different by the time they got through that. Those were gone. They ended up having to get something different than what they thought. I think we can always continue to reach out and see if they have. Unfortunately, in the wreck with the Tahoe that we're discussing as total, we had another one that was wrecked at the same time as part of that. It's fixable, so we will get that back. But we already had one in the shop. We checked on it today. We're still a few weeks out, but we literally have the spare parts, the engine blew up in those, unfortunately. So there literally is no, that we have no available. If we lose another car by mechanical or accident, we'll be into a sharing car situation.
They can use the hoop in your.
Yeah.
Well,
I said, you're right about the vehicle.
Where's these cars,
You're right about that, though. They can scoop those up. Is there a way to do that tonight, or not? Okay. Alright, can you do that tonight?
We
then?
Well, we
could,
could meet in 2 days, right?
we could do it Saturday morning.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can change the agenda. We still got 24 hours, and I can add that, because you're meeting as a council, you're not meeting as committee.
Mhm.
So we could take care of that action item Saturday morning.
I've already advised him that I have to work, so I won't be here, but he's gonna, I'm in agreement with that too, so.
Right.
I'll make a motion though that we go ahead and,
Buy the truck.
yeah.
Have a second.
Second.
Somebody wanted-
I thought we were already motioned.
Yeah.
Oh, did we?
Yep.
I thought so.
Okay. I apologize.
It's okay. We voted
All
a lot.
right, now, is there any other discussion on the truck?
That's fine.
Is it 4-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a proceed ready for it, right?
Yeah.
It is the V6 turbo, or to be economical.
So far, the one we've had, like, I wish I had some complaint about it, so I'm not for it.
Yeah.
And necessarily, but I don't. But I've driven that truck and it performs as it should, and even as good as anything else we have.
How are the brakes holding up on it? I know the brakes,
Again, I'm not bragging on it too much, but it's actually really good. If anybody's interested in checking it out, like, come by, like, it performs better than it ought to.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of, the purchasing the police truck?
Aye.
Opposed? Don't think there's any, so we're good there. All right, we need to have an executive session, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
I'll make a motion for executive session.
Okay. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And this is for personnel, info, legal advice, and discussion on appointments to boards and commissions. Thank all of y'all for coming. You're welcome to hang around if you'd like. Yeah,
come out of their car right quick, make sure they all right.
on that.
I'll make a motion to accept the, personnel handbook.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting that as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Don't think there is any. Okay, discussion on appointments to boards and commissions. Someone like to
I'd like,
This is for our planning commission, so.
Yes.
Correct, yes, sir.
I'd like to make a nomination to appoint Miss Lynn McLean.
I'll say.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion there? Hearing none, all those in favor of the appointment of Lynn McLean to the Planning Commission? Aye. Opposed? None. Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
I'll make a motion with adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.
Alright.
So can we stay an hour or two?
Yeah, we can stay a while now if you want.
If the Waffle House was it, we could go
Yeah,
down
if we ever hit the Waffle House, we could go down and have